right, mic check 1 2 1 2. Let me see if my volume is up. Yeah, the volume is up. All right. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 328, Black Tech Talk. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. And there's a docket in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with. We have officially broken 2,000 subscribers as of this morning. So congratulations to all of the contributing members of the Black Brain Trust and all the subscribers for actually subscribing and supporting the Black Brain Trust. So we've reached our goal of 2,000 subscribers. Initially, when we first started, we thought that we were just going to have 250 to 300 subscribers. And then Dollar Will said he bet that we would hit 500. And we hit 500. And from 500, we went to 1,000 and went from 1,000 to 1,500. And we thought that that was going to be it. But now we're at 2,000 subscribers, and this is our end goal. Is 2,000 subscribers. So congratulations and to all the contributing members of the Black Brain Trust, including Amanda Tomorrow, Super Triz, and all the other contributing members. Mega Montana, what's going on? Peace. Raining Woman, good evening to you. Cashmatic, what's going on? My ear, what's going on? All right, so we're going to have a discussion tonight about tech resumes, negotiating salaries, and SysAdmin chat. Just some slight stuff to go over. We were supposed to go over this last night, but we got distracted with other discussions. So this will be the makeup for last night, but Black Tech Talk is going to be happening tonight. We're going to really get into it. So I know there was some questions last night about how to negotiate salaries and what kind of resume would be necessary, how to construct it, and things of that nature. We're going to go over that tonight. Also, if you want some life coaching, Raining Woman offers life coaching, so make sure you subscribe to her channel and participate and send your questions her way, and she can actually help you out in life coaching. All right. Also, if you want to join the panel, there's a link in the chat. When you click on the link, make sure you raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you so we can bring you onto the panel. All right, let me get started, man. The first item on the docket is from redhat.com, and in SysAdmin job levels, what you need to know for each. So we're going to talk about SysAdmin real quick. I know we talked about this briefly in depth before, but we're going to talk about it just briefly real quick because I think this is a achievable goal for a lot of people who subscribe here who want to get into IT. Linux system administrator job descriptions can run the gamut from very generic to extremely specific. Find out which skills and knowledge you really need for each technical level. If you've ever looked at job descriptions for system administrators, you begin to wonder what exactly the required skills and knowledge are for the particular job. It seems that every system administrator job outlines different skills, knowledge, and experience levels. There are no standards with which one may compare themselves to. In this article, my goal is to offer guidelines for the basic skills, knowledge, and experience levels needed for each job level, beginning with entry level and ending with subject matter expert, SME. Entry level novice newbie, 0 to 2 years experience. An entry level person is one who has no track record or verifiable work experience in system administration. The person might be a hobbyist, a student, or someone who recently changed careers. The typical entry points are internships, help desk associates positions, desktop support, and other similar level 1 support roles. Expected entry level knowledge largely depends on the hiring manager and the other team members performing the interview. Entry level folks often have significant experience from their own studies, formal classwork, student work study, or even volunteer work that helps them get that first opportunity in the IT field. Often they have industry recognized certifications that they feel will help their cases in getting their first jobs. First responsibilities for entry-level system administrators focus on repetitive or scripted tasks such as user maintenance, backups, assisting with hardware maintenance, and supervise end user support calls. Workers at this level should learn as much as they can about every job there is in IT. Gain exposure to a wide range of software, hardware, networking, and general computing, but focus on Linux commands, file system navigation, and services. The highest hurdle is getting the first job for an entry-level person. Companies want people with experience, but few are willing to give that experience. My recommendations for entry-level folks: learn on your own and then demonstrate your knowledge in the interview. The best way to get an interview is to network by joining local user groups. Use virtual machines to practice using and navigating Linux systems. Study and obtain certification. So we we have on this channel talked about certs a lot because it's important in your process of advancing yourself in this line of business. So I agree 100% with the bullet points. You know, learn on your own, fire up a virtual machine, find your your favorite Linux distro, and study for certifications. Linux Plus, Server Plus. What's the other one?
Linux Foundation.
Well, Linux, yeah,
Or the,
Linux Foundation certified system administrator. But there's another one I
oh,
was thinking about.
oh, the Red Hat.
LPI. So having the LPI certification is actually good as well. Linux Professional Institute. So I can't disagree with that at all. Keep it tech. You have anything you want to add to that?
Oh yeah, what's up, man? So I mean, this is pretty much the, I guess, the premise of of my channel or whatever, I just try to teach people how to they can spin up those virtual machines and set up these operating systems and go through it
Mhm.
and actually study all this stuff on your own. You know what I'm saying? So I totally agree with the article. This is, I mean, it's the information is out there. You just gotta read it, pick it up, and try to apply it. And
Mhm.
you have all the tools to apply it if you want to. You just gotta want to do it. So
Mhm.
that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Mike, what's going on? What's going on, guys?
Hey, what's going on, man? What's going on?
Yeah, totally agree with the article. I relayed a story a while back. Mike would be familiar with it. Maybe some other people might. Of of a Unix kind of Linux guy that had servers in his house. He was a young kid, and so all he did was played with machines, got as much information about it, played with them. His parents had some money, so they were able to buy him some, a couple of Unix boxes, some Linux stuff, and he just really understood how to really solve a lot of problems. He had strong, system admin ability. He had some development ability as well. As kid was pretty much a genius in certain respects. I won't say he was a genius. He came off certain like one and functioned like one because his knowledge game was so deep and it was his experience, and he had picked up a lot on his own, learned a lot on his own, and gave him a tech test. He had a problem with one of the boxes, one of the Unix systems, and kid came in and solved the problem. Came and solved the problem. And he had all these other big guns who were supposedly were really super sharp people, and they didn't hear some 17-year-old kid who solved the problem, and we hired him. So yeah, so that's this article is dead on. One of the key things I think that one has to think about as well, or really utilize, are user groups. See, right now, I became, we have the .NET user group, that I joined on LinkedIn and all that. So there's some key user groups that you can pick, that you can get into. Certainly, you can recruit from that. You can learn a lot of other things from that. You can solve problems with these people. They have also hiring managers and so forth through there who you can definitely contact, that are in these user groups. You get around, start having conversations and so forth. And next thing you know, somebody's, asking you to come in and talk and maybe have an interview with them. And boom, next thing you know, you're off to the races. Um, Especially if you're junior level, because a lot of companies, they won't experience people. As they said in this article, junior people have a more difficult time, so you have to reach out a lot more and really kind of go where the action is to be seen to get these opportunities. And the more people who are proactive in this see much better results. So it's kind of who you know and who you linking up with. So groups on LinkedIn and a lot of other areas that you have, tech groups to really to move in on. Uh, Depending on what area you're in, it could be a development group or an admin group, or like I said, a .NET group or so. I mean, it doesn't, it's very important to get into these areas and talk with people who are working. Other consultants who can certainly turn you on. Hiring managers for major companies are there.
Mhm.
Key, key, very important. That's a key piece that they bring up, because that is very important.
All
And
right,
it's not dead. Go ahead.
let me finish reading this. Junior, 2 to 4 experience, 2 to 4 years experience. Junior level administrators have had some on-the-job experience and possibly some formal training. This person's responsibilities might include performing and verifying backups, restoring files, managing user accounts, onboarding users, offboarding users, on-call rotation, limited client interface, and system maintenance activities. A person at this level should possess the following knowledge and skills: good knowledge of the Linux file system, general command usage and syntax, use of sudo in handling limited root user tasks, basic knowledge of networks and troubleshooting network problems, basic hardware knowledge, knowledge of backup, restore, and recovery procedures, good understanding of permissions and user management. Interviewing for a junior level position can be interesting. Interviewers will often test the interviewee's knowledge, level of knowledge, until the interviewee responds multiple times with "I don't know." Interview questions are generally technical and might cover scenario-based situations, such as what would you do if X happened? Junior level system administrator can be a stressful but rewarding time in your career. The stress is from having too many tasks to perform within a normal workday, which can combine with which when combined with on-call rotation, late night maintenance windows can cause early career burnout. Check out these articles to avoid this problem. So I'm not going to go into the rest of it because I think that's beyond the skill set of some of the people who are trying to get in to IT in this area. So I think I agree with this 100%, especially the junior piece. Got to have good literacy. I mean, this is really about Unix, Linux literacy. Do you know the file system? Backup, restore, and recovery procedures. Cron jobs. Basic hardware knowledge in networking. Networking is key. The ability to actually use IP tables is very important. And sudo, so leveling up to root is actually important, and not getting trapped inside some of the sub-level structures.
Well, hey, Mike, I would say, you're also linking up with, people who are knowledgeable and getting in these user groups and so forth, where people can pick up a lot of this information and start to work on their own, would facilitate that process as well. Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, but if you're by yourself at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're
A little different.
yeah, it's a little different. Can't really rely on anybody at that point, unless you're going to go back to your Unix administrator's Bible. Let me link that into the chat because I think that's still a relevant book. I still use it from time to time, even though it's a little bit dated. Oh, okay. Let me share my screen. All right. This is the book I was referring to, Unix and Linux System Administration Handbook. This is the Bible for reference procedures and whatnot in Linux and Unix. Most very proficient people in Linux administration, Linux engineering have one of these books on their desk. It's just one of those things. It may not get open for a whole year, but when you do need it, you do go to it. Despite the fact that we do have Google, you can kind of Google a lot of things, but there's still a lot of fundamental principles in there that are still relevant for usage in your day-to-day operation. So this is like the Bible. I'll link that in the chat for you guys as well. All right. Shout out to Craig, the tech guy. Craig, if you want to get on the panel, you're more than welcome. Diaspora EL ask a question. Unix equals Apple and Linux. Android equals Android, Ubuntu, Chrome OS, correct? No, that's not necessarily what it is. And maybe Keep It Techie can agree to disagree with me on that. What do you think about that, Josh? I think Josh might be trying to plan
the question, but hello?
Hello? You were breaking up. You were breaking up.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
I'm sorry about that. I can't actually see the question, but I think I know what he's saying here. Android is kind of like a derivative of they use a Linux kernel with Android, as well as Mac OS. That came from Unix as well. Is that what they asked?
Yeah, well, I think he's saying that there. I think what he's saying is that there is their relevance. For he's saying Unix equals Apple and Linux. Apple and Linux equals Android, Ubuntu, Chrome OS, correct? See, I think that there's a misunderstanding of what Android actually is, and what Chrome OS is versus what Unix is versus what Linux is. A lot of the syntax actually isn't interoperable. Some of it is, a lot of it is not. So the base level structure between Unix and Linux would be the same 20 years ago. Today, it's not. A lot of it is vastly different from a syntax standpoint, and a lot of the workflows are different. Linux has superseded Unix for all intents and purposes, so it's not really the same in that regard. There's some relation, but it's not the same. It's kind of like saying uh, uh, um, a Monte Carlo and a Regal is the same car, and it's really not. At this point, it isn't. I mean, it's different brand names, but there's different functions in the vehicle that are not 100% aligned. No, Mac OS is derived from BSD, I think, if I remember correctly.
Nah, you right. It's BSD.
Yeah, BSD is based off of Unix, but when you say it's derived from Unix, that would actually be inaccurate, right? So these are little nuances that we're referring to. He says Ubuntu and Android is derived from Linux. That's not necessarily true. That's not necessarily true. Android has a lot to do with Java more so than just Linux itself. The operating system, yeah, is it's a substructure, but Java is actually what's driving Android. Android doesn't work without Java. Ubuntu
Yeah,
is,
see that?
yeah, go ahead.
Nah, Ubuntu is Linux.
Yeah,
Ubuntu is a
yeah,
Linux distribution.
yeah.
And basically, just I think the confusion is coming in where the reason they have all these different distributions is you have to look at how Linux as a whole, or the kernel, is it's all open source, meaning that
Mhm.
no one really owns Linux.
Right.
So anybody can take the kernel and
Right.
put whatever they want on top of it to make their own distribution.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what.
Yeah, I think that's what a misunderstanding is on his behalf.
Yeah.
On his behalf. But it's a common misunderstanding because people just throw Unix, Linux around very loosely, and it's not always applicable. You know, HP UX is a version of Unix by HP. Same thing with DEC or digital systems. You know, Digital Electronics Corporation before Compaq actually bought them, and then HP bought Compaq, and then you had HP Unix. So there's a variety of areas, especially IBM. IBM spin off of Unix. I forget what their OS was. Z, I think it was Z for the mainframe. So you still have very varying structures of distributions and different operating systems and things like that. You would think that they were 100% related, but they're not. They're just kind of derivatives of certain aspects of it. Like on my Chrome OS tablet, um, it even though it has Linux IDE enabled, a lot of Linux functionality does not work on there. But good discussion though. Good discussion. All right, let me get to the next article. This next article is from ZDNet. Developer jobs from SQL to Java. These are the skills companies are looking for now. Employers continue to hunt for software developers and programmers and professionals with a set of core IT skills. According to the tech industry body CompTIA, there were more than 140,000 ads for IT jobs listed in the UK in the second quarter of 2019, which is about 9% of all jobs advertised. In terms of tech recruiting, ads aiming at finding programmers and software developers were the largest single category, accounting for more than 50,000 ads. IT business analysts, architects, and system designers were the second most sought after group, with 21,000 ads aimed at them. Third came IT support technicians. There were nearly 8,000 ads aimed at hiring IT project and program managers, and just under 3,000 aimed at IT and telecom directors. According to CompTIA, the list of the top skills required on the basis of job ads includes software development principles, SQL, technical support, JavaScript, jQuery, web development, Microsoft DevTools, operating systems, system design and implementation, project management in Java. However, the industry body said that IT job posting numbers in Q2 were down 13% from Q1 and lower than Q2 2018. Despite the decline in ads, the size of the UK IT workforce continues to grow year over year. It is projected to increase by more than 14,000 workers this year to 1.3 million, with another 48,000 new jobs projected for the 5-year period from 2018 through 2023. According to CompTIA, there were around 1.2 million people working in the tech field in tech in the UK. The largest single group of 250,000 is developers and programmers, followed by IT specialist managers, of which there are 221,000 plus around 120,000 IT operation workers, and 111,000 business analysts, architects, and system designers. Clearly, there is, excuse me, clearly there is still a solid market demand for fundamental technology skills in networking security and technical support, said Graham Hunter, CompTIA's vice president for skills certification in Europe and the Middle East. These foundational skills must be in place to provide the management and support for current operations, as well as the emerging technologies and innovations that are taking hold. London is the most common working area mentioned in ads, appearing 171,000 ads in the last year compared to 23,000 that mentioned Birmingham. This bias towards the capital is unsurprising. According to a separate research by Accenture, which analyzed LinkedIn data, 37% of UK professionals cite their current location as London. That's likely to grow, the consulting firm said, as a furthering 63,000 jobs in emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, data analytics, and blockchain are being advertised in the capital. However, depending on their specialty and variations in the cost of living, some tech workers can be better off working outside of London, according to one analysis. So these are the top skills that they're looking for: software development principles, SQL, technical support, JavaScript and jQuery, web development, Microsoft DevTools, operating systems, which is very broad, systems design and implementation, project management in Java. Nagone, you have anything you want to add to that?
No, you can add a lot more, but the key thing is the development piece and, the programmer piece, and that's huge. We have there here in the United States, we have right now, close, if I'm not mistaken, last thing I read, we had close to almost 1 million jobs, which is insane, but almost unfilled in the IT industry. And we there's a lot of stuff that's unfilled. And that's where the work is to a large extent. That's why one thing we hear in the here at the Brain Trust, we talk about tech a lot because that's definitely where the jobs are. So they're dead on it. I am knee deep in SQL, C, C#, C++ developers, Java, very heavy development work, especially with some of the because you guys were talking about before the Android, but the phone companies and so forth. Very strong in Java development. Big there with other back end skills, Swing, AWT, and this type of stuff. All this cloud computing background. So there's so much of it that's just coming up, and jobs coming up all the time. So yeah, they're dead on it. I would just, I don't have much really to add. It's just this is just the truth. And I think those who are certainly in this space, or those who are hiring managers and so forth, can talk about that they're understaffed. There's no company that I know right now is overstaffed in technology. Or any major companies overstaffed. I don't know of any now. Certainly, they may have consultants that may come on a project and work a project in them and get it done, but and then they may circle out and lay them off and wait for other projects. But for us full-time workers in the IT industry, it's understaffed.
Yeah, definitely. But I think, from an entry-level standpoint, software development principles, SQL, technical support, JavaScript, I think those four skill sets are actually attainable, right? You could pick up any book on JavaScript and learn that. I think they have something like learn JavaScript in 24 hours or something like that. There's a book. Go ahead.
That's very much so. I mean, Java is, you'll have some companies that you may go to, and they and in their they have areas in their company where there are people who can actually teach you Java. If you have another skill set, they can teach you Java in there. So companies actually can help you do that. You can definitely go to your library and go online here and do whatever and learn. That knowledge is readily available. So it's not like this is difficult stuff to find out, or you have to be in some specialized environment in which to learn it. You can learn this right in the crib. And it's not that difficult. It is not that difficult to learn. Some other programming skills are a bit more difficult. I would say C++ or C programming on the whole, C# and that, they have some, might be a little more, difficult, a little more mathematics involved and so forth. But at the same time, that's very accessible, learnable as well. So the information is there. The information is there.
Yeah. So the book I'm looking at right now is JavaScript in 24 hours. Teach yourself. So this is the book I was referring to. I'm surprised they came out with a new one for 20. I believe this is 2018. Yeah, I believe this is 2018. So I'm going to link that in the chat too, so everybody can get their hands on that if they want to learn it. From my understanding, it's supposed to be really good. It's only 500 pages, so you can't really beat that.
You can knock it out in 2 days if that's what really, if you really put your head into it, you can really knock it out pretty quick. There's a lot out there. I mean, I hate to say it, man. There should be no reason why people are on the beach or not doing anything. There's so much out here for you to learn. If you have initiative, you can pick a lot of this stuff up and get going. I know people can say tech is not for everyone, but I'm of the mindset, if you really want to work and you want to make money, yeah, it is for you. It's there, and you can learn it. You don't have to be a genius.
Yeah, and then the other skill set says web development. That's HTML, CSS, coding, website coding. So web development from that aspect, kind of separate, but it's still relevant. A lot of these skill sets that they're referring to here is something called minus Java, would be considered full stack development or full stack engineer. That's really what they're talking about. That's what a full stack guy does. A full stack guy takes everything from the front end and the back end and the middle tier as well. And all of this focuses on front end, which is JavaScript, and then you have the SQL, which is the back end, and then the operating systems, that's the back end. System design and implementation, that's the back end. Web development, that's the front end. So this is all focused on full stack development. So if you were to have all of these sort of skills, you would be considered a full stack engineer or a full stack developer. Very, very lucrative role if you can actually master those skills.
And SQL, structured query language, SQL. I think Richard Victor was talking about that in the chat. Yeah, SQL is fundamental. SQL, SQL and all that, knowing the server side of the game and all, picking that stuff up. You can learn a lot of this. And SQL been around a long time. It's very, almost every place that exists around, almost every major company is dealing with SQL at a certain level. So, there's a lot. There's really a lot out here. As I said, you have more tech jobs open than you have tech people to fill them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think Keep It Techie works as a DBA.
Okay, that's cool. I'm sure he's got.
I'm actually a Microsoft SQL administrator, so to speak. That's all I was gonna do is add that. That's important. We always talk about on the Black Brain Trust about automation and all that, but database and data in general is very important, and they need people to help develop, front ends for this, because the information is there, but it has to be put into a format that people can understand. Because a computer, all it sees is ones and zeros. It's all, the data is just there. You have to have those developers to come in and actually make sense of it, and put it in a format that's understood. So that's all I wanted to add to that.
Yep. Yeah. You're definitely dead on that. And we just got to keep kind of beating your drum and just keeping people awake to that, because this is you're not going to lose your jobs here per se for the foreseeable future. There's a lot going on, and this tech industry is relatively new. Last 50 years or so, this thing is consistently growing, and this is going to continue for the foreseeable future. For anybody who's sitting there and serving drinks or working at a kiosk or something else like that, you will be eliminated. But this kind of stuff, you won't be. So we want people to be thinking this way. All right, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah. All right, this one is from helpnetsecurity.com. Sophos. 49% of InfoSec pros are awake at night worrying about their organization's cybersecurity. I would be one of them. 6 in every 10 businesses have experienced a breach in the last 3 years. At least a third of InfoSec professionals, 36%, whose employers had not recently been a victim of a cyber attack, also believe that it is likely that they are currently facing one without knowing about it. So which type of cyber attack, cyber risk, in your opinion, poses the biggest threat to your organization in 2019? 36% say phishing, whaling attack. 29% says Trojans. 28% says ransomware. 28% says legal and compliance risk. 24% says unpatched software. 24% says DDoS attack. 22% says social media threats. 20% says APTs and cyber espionage. 0% says other, and 4% says I don't know. So here's what needs to be understood. Actually, let me read the whole article. This may be an indicator of a bumper year for breaches, as the total number of organizations reporting breaches in 2018 only came to 32%. InfoSec professionals are right to be concerned, as by the end of July 2019, a quarter of InfoSec professionals revealed that the company they work for had suffered a breach. These findings and more are revealed in Bitdefender's Global Hacked Off study. The study takes into account the views and opinions of more than 6,000 InfoSec professionals across UK, US, Australia, New Zealand, Germany, France, Italy, and Spain. Respondents represent a broad cross-section of organizations from fledgling SMEs through to publicly listed 10,000 person enterprises in a wide variety of industries, including finance, government, and energy. Against the backdrop of an increasingly complex and fast-moving threat landscape, InfoSec professionals are accurately aware of the risk their organizations face. Almost half, 49%, report that they are kept awake at night worrying about the organization's cybersecurity. More than half, 58%, are also worried about the readiness of their organization in dealing with a global cyber attack. The challenge is that it's not only the threat landscape InfoSec professionals are contending with. More than a third of respondents report that there is a lack of cybersecurity understanding from general employees. There's also a problem at the top of the organizations. I would agree with that 100%. C-suite support is minimal, with as many as 57% of InfoSec professionals revealing that key executives are least likely to comply with organizational cybersecurity policy, either pushing back on or completely disregarding the rules. I have seen this. Furthermore, InfoSec professionals are suffering from breach fatigue. On average, over half, 53%, of endpoint detection and response alerts are false alarms. And 49% of InfoSec professionals say their team experienced both alert and agent fatigue, something I've been through multiple times. Their stress levels are high. This is compounded by the belief that 73% of them think their organization is more at risk of a cyber attack because they are under-resourced. This is higher, 78% for companies employing more than 1,000 people. According to respondents, resources are such a stressor that 17% of InfoSec professionals have contemplated leaving their job due to under-resourcing in terms of staff. Resources are, in fact, such a bugbear that InfoSec pros say the main obstacle to their organization strengthening their cybersecurity posture are a lack of budget and lack of skilled personnel. Comments leave a view. Arsenine, global cybersecurity researcher at Bitdefender. There is a desperate need for the speed and of response to increase. Almost 1 in 3 InfoSec professionals reveal that it would take a week or longer to detect an advanced cyber attack. This is true. This is higher, 39%, among those that are in organizations that provide info security training and support, which is quite surprising, as the main obstacles that prevent rapid incident detection and response are identified as being lack of knowledge and a lack of proper security tools, 36%. There's also a catch in breach identification. Only 3 in every 100 InfoSec professionals reported that 100% of advanced attacks can be efficiently detected and isolated. For 3 in every 10 companies, 31%, this figure is less than half, which proves that there is a vast room for improvement. The need for speed in response to threats is born from the very real consequences that companies face if their cybersecurity is not up to scratch. The fallout from being unaware of an ongoing breach, according to InfoSec professionals, would be business interruption, 43%, reputational cost, 38%, and a loss of revenue, 37%. But what's more concerning to InfoSec professionals is the loss of customer trust. More than a third, 37%, say it is their biggest concern. Which department area in your organization would you say is most at risk of a data breach? So 19% says finance, 15% says senior management, 14% says marketing, 12% says human resources, 12% says sales, 11% says R&D, 5% is legal, 3% is other, 9% doesn't know. Despite the need for improvements, 57% of InfoSec professionals rate their organization's cybersecurity either very good or excellent. Our scene concludes poor cybersecurity is an undeniable threat to businesses today. From the loss of customer trust to the impact on the bottom line, it is critical for InfoSec professionals to get it right. Our advice would be to focus on critical areas of improvement. The study reveals that InfoSec professionals believe that the main drivers for boosting their organization's cybersecurity profiles are improving data protection and faster detection and response capabilities. I can't say I disagree with this article. As someone who works in cybersecurity, it is very stressful. I noticed that I have less hair now than I did when I first started. I think part of the issue is that, like the article is saying, a lot of the executives tend to push back against spending. And another issue is that cybersecurity shares the budget with IT. So if IT eats up 2/3 of the budget on technology and services, then what happens to cybersecurity is that they only get 33% of that budget. And that's not enough. You need your own budget and actually to address a lot of the areas of weakness within the organization. It's not enough to share your budget with somebody else and they take up 2/3 of the pie. All right, let me get to the next article.
Hey, quick question for you, Mike, before
Yes,
you
sir.
get to the next one.
Go ahead.
You ever thought about creating a your own cybersecurity company? Because that's one thing I was gonna bring up. If you ask for any input.
Well, I think the problem is that there's already enough cybersecurity companies out there right now. Everybody's offering something. It's like an arms race. There's actually a cybersecurity industrial complex where they sell you fear, and then they try to provide you the solution to the fear itself. Always talking about Chinese threats, Russian threats, all this, phishing and phishing campaigns and things of that nature, ransomware. They're always trying to sell fear, and I think for me, because I know the industry very well, I don't want to be a part of that, right? I don't want to be the guy who's always trying to offer a solution to a problem. I'm always, I think what happens with a lot of companies is they don't even follow the basic NIST guidelines to a T. And because of that, they lack the ability to actually secure themselves. And so they think that throwing money at the problem is actually going to solve it, and it never solves it. If we look at Capital One, the recent breach there, they had millions of dollars spent on cybersecurity, and they still got breached. Same thing with Target. Same thing with what's the other one that recently got breached? Equifax. spent millions of dollars on cybersecurity and still got breached. It's one of those things where if you just did your due diligence, you would not have this problem. For me, the problem is that I don't want to be a part of that. Here's a solution to your problem sort of deal. I want companies to be more compliant. It's kind of like I wish the cybersecurity industry would actually force, at least from a federal standpoint, I wish they would force companies to adopt regulatory standards such as like you would never be able to buy a car right now without anti-lock brakes, without an airbag, without a seatbelt, and your car wouldn't be able to pass inspection if the brakes were faulty, if the airbag light sensor was on, if your seatbelt did not buckle. You would never be able to your vehicle wouldn't be able to pass inspection. I think part of the reason why you're seeing so many issues in the industry from a cybersecurity perspective is because none of these companies could ever they don't have a willingness to actually comply, at least not 100%. They may be 80% there, they may be 70% there. The problem is they're not 100%, and that's where the issue is. If we did the same thing with cars, no car company would ever bother spending the money on airbags and stuff like that, or anti-lock brakes and airbags and things of that nature. They wouldn't do that. They would just actually just ship the car as it is, and then let you deal with the problems later. So I think the problem for me is that I don't see myself being a part of that part of the industry, the arms race. Go ahead, Nicole.
Hey, Mike, is it a cost cutting perspective for a lot of these companies? Why they're not complying, or is it just just laziness? I don't know what else to say.
It's from cost cutting, and it's also from not wanting to pay employees. Right, a cybersecurity employee is going to cost you $100,000 out the gate. You may need a staff of maybe, depending on how large your organization is, per every 10,000, you need at least 3 to 4 cybersecurity analysts on the roll on the job. In order to be flexible and resilient in your response. So you imagine companies like GE and some of these other big ones that have 100,000, 200,000 employees, that becomes a problem. You need a lot more cybersecurity staff, and you don't have it because you're not willing to pay.
Well, then they can't complain if they get hammered.
Well, that starts at the top, right? But as shit rolls downhill all the time.
Certainly.
And those guys, those people who are at the top, man, their world is different than the analyst's role. And analyst is biting his nails, sitting on pins and needles. Executive is flying in and out of meetings and not really giving a F. So there's a lot of political decisions being made and not being made on behalf of the organization that is affecting them. You can't just go out and spend $1 million on cybersecurity software and think that that's going to solve your issue. That's not how it works. You need human interaction on the ground and human decision making in order to have effective resiliency within your organization. If you don't have that, you're screwed. So that's to answer your question, Techie.
Yeah, and I agree.
All right, this one is from Click Orlando. Should I personalize my resume for each company? All your latest job search questions answered. Let me read this real quick. With the unemployment rate at 3.7%, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the current job market, more so than in recent years, seems to favor job seekers rather than companies. People looking for jobs have a little more ability to be selective, but there are still some steps to take in order for candidates to stand out to employers. Elisha Martin, who has more than 20 years of experience as a recruiter and is the recruiting manager at G&A Partners, a national human resource outsourcing provider with offices in Texas, Arizona, Minnesota, and Utah, offered some tips and insight as to the best practices for job seekers should keep in mind in this current climate. What should job seekers be looking for most with available openings? It is important that job seekers look for positions that have qualities which they know they'll be happy and productive with in the long term. Whether it's a position that will offer growth in the career path, good company culture, a chance to work remotely if that's desired, a good driving distance from the office, or any other qualities. It's important for job seekers or for seekers to determine and pursue their best fits. If someone eventually gets a job that is a bad fit, that could end up being detrimental, Martin said. They have to be careful about their resume not showing a lot of jobs, she said. If they take a job and don't like it, then 2 months later take another job and didn't like it, if they keep changing, it's not going to look good when a recruiter is looking at their resume. It'll look like they are not stable. Many job seekers have how important is it to personalize resumes, cover letters for specific jobs? Many job seekers have a strategy of producing one generic resume and cover letter and sending it out to dozens, if not hundreds, of companies that are hiring. While there are some parts of the resume that are okay to remain generic, Martin said, it's important for job seekers to put in the work and make their resume stand out by personalizing aspects of their applications. There are six, there is a 6 second scan rule, Martin said. Recruiters, they will glance at your resume for 6 seconds. They are looking for certain keywords, skills, or expertise. If they don't see it in the first 6 seconds, they might not continue reading the resume. You want to tailor your resume. Are their recruiters trustworthy? Plenty of frustrated job seekers have had instances where recruiters get in touch with them out of the blue, show interest, or even throw compliments about their resume or qualifications. Then those recruiters are never heard from again. Martin said recruiters can be trusted in general because they are in the business of helping people out. But there are some who have different objectives, such as in it, being in it more for a commission or to fill numbers. Maybe they found other candidates that were more viable and they just forgot to get back to with you. Or at the same time, some recruiters don't feel like they have a connection to you just yet, Martin said. Even then, they should give you that courtesy of following up. Each recruiter, what they are in it for determines how they respond. Martin said, even when recruiters get overwhelmed with a large number of candidates, they should make sure to still be considerate, especially to avoid a bad review from candidates on sites. It's definitely their responsibility and job to make sure they are providing a candidate with a good experience, but unfortunately, sometimes they don't, she said. So from a resume perspective, Nagon, what are your tips here? What are you hearing from this? What do you agree, disagree with? What's your take?
Okay, I pretty much agree with pretty much what all they say. Recruiters, even hiring managers, to be quite frank with you, they do not have a lot of time reviewing a lot of resumes and scanning through a long, laborious resume that may have a lot of stuff in there. And the key pertinent information that you might have about, say, a given area might be buried somewhere in there. It may not be out front where they can see it very quickly, so you may not get that look. The key of it is yeah, you want to tailor your resume to the job and to the area that you're kind of applying into. So you want to make sure that the key skill set that, let's say, that company is looking for, or for that job, that's highlighted quickly. So when that person sees it, I get that resume that comes through. I get a lot of resumes on a daily, consistent basis. People say they have this, they have that. They don't have that. They don't have a certain skill set. I don't see it. You're going to continue to move on. And yes, recruiters may be, kind to you and all that, but the reality is it's a business. So if they don't see what you have, that's going to really help to advance them to make a placement. It's not happening, man. It ain't going to happen. People get upset, but it's not happening. You might have the skill set, but it may not be in the resume. So, or may not be highlighted in the resume. So you want to make sure the keywords, carries that one is potentially looking for is there, that it's highlighted, may even be bolded on the resume. Some people might use, a certain type of text, but then they might want to use a bolded text as well for some of the key skill sets that job that they're actually applying for is there. So that stands out very quickly. If I've got 300 resumes on my desk and I'm looking, say, for a certain programmer, let's say an old skill, let's say somebody a Sybase, let's say, all right? I know people want to deal with Sybase, so I'm just throwing it out there. I'm looking for a Sybase developer, a rare type of person, Sybase development. And they got Java, they've got this, they've got all the other stuff, but Sybase is not there. But now all of a sudden they see it's a Sybase job, somebody has Sybase experience, they put that right up front, boom, I'm going to see that very quickly. I'm going to take a look at their resume, open it up, and just start to go through it and then start to see what's there. And let's see if this person is good enough to, either bring in for an interview, do a phone interview or so forth, and then look to advance that over to your client to make sure that this person is then qualified or whatever. And then boom, you're on your way to an interview and potentially a job. So that's very key for the resume writer to understand that. And usually that's why I always say it's good, because you have some people come out, I know how to write resumes, and they'll say how great they are writing a resume. But at the end of the day, they may be missing the big point that you might have to have these key parts, these key things, these key skill sets out there that you can see very quickly. If you're putting together a big resume, big giant cover letter, all this stuff, these guys are not going to go read through all that. All right. They got too many other resumes to look at. They're not going to go read through all that all day long. Hiring managers as well. They may not sit back and look at it. They want to see if that stuff is there. Sitting on that resume, can I see it very quickly? See it. All right. This guy has a skill set. Let's see how deep that they know it. Let's bring him in, or let's phone screen him. Let's move forward. Very important to understand that writing a resume, having those skill sets stand out on that page very quickly. So you have to look at each job that you're applying for, and you have to make sure that your resume really speaks to that position by having that highlighted. So you may have one, two, maybe three different resumes potentially. And that's a possibility. It's got to be tailored for the job. And they have to see it. That hiring manager or that recruiter has to see that quickly. If it doesn't stand out, you go into the bottom. You go into the bottom of the pile.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Hey, what's going on?
Not too much. I have had the majority of my issues in the job market with recruiters. And it's not so much that, with the whole idea of the resume tailoring, but that idea of ghosting and not really getting back to you, or saying, hey, I'll let you know something by this particular time. They don't let you know. You got to kind of follow up with them. You got to run after certain recruiters in order to, and I'm like, it's wild, because like, if I know that I'm good for the position, and the recruiter, a lot of times I've run into recruiters who have not really been very abreast of the industry that I'm in. So they don't really understand all of the nuance and how I will be a very good candidate for a particular position. And that ghosting thing and kind of running you around. Like, I've even talked to a recruiter who was telling me like, I don't see you as a good fit for this role. And then when I talk to like people who work there at that place, or even talking to the hiring manager, I've gotten a completely different reception. Like, I've been looking for you. So I think that some issues that I've seen is the ghosting, and also recruiters not really being abreast of what's happening in the industry, and if an individual is a good candidate for a role. Those have been some of the issues I've run into.
That certainly is going to come up. You're going to run into recruiters. Some recruiters are going to be better than others. Some are definitely going to miss some key points. But if you're dealing with a recruiter who's competent, who's been in the business for some years, and has a good relationship, especially with that client, or with their clients, and they know exactly what they're looking for. You know, and if your resume is right and that information is there and that person sees it, then they can then they without question can move you forward. Myself in my own business, I spend a lot of time talking with candidates who that if I see that they are around the skill set, I'll definitely call them up and talk to them to find out what they really know. Because sometimes you have a lot of candidates that are not very good at writing resumes, and that's why good recruiters, what they do is they consistently rewrite resumes and constantly keep their candidates up to up to speed on how they have to have their resume prepared so they can get that bite. Because a lot of times these candidates will come in and they will have a skill set, but their resume is just not written properly, where it doesn't really highlight that skill set. And candidates are not professional resume writers. So somebody like myself and or who's in the business, is or are. So different types. But yes, you are going to run into some recruiters who are definitely not going to be on top of their game. But a lot are, and if the resume is not written properly, and they'll say, "Yeah, I'll get back to you." That also means that they may have a lot of other people in that job queue, and they may have a lot of people interviewing at that point in time. And a lot of times, they ghost because somebody's been hired, their job is kind of closed out, and they don't get back to you, and you got to follow up, and then they'll come up with some crap later. I don't tend to like to do business that way, but that tends to be the case as well.
Well, I think with LinkedIn, your profile on LinkedIn is a kind of a dead giveaway as to what it is that they're looking for, and so on and so forth. So I think with the problem, and I agree with Gabe that ghosting is a huge issue, not just for the candidate ghosting the company or the recruiter, but the recruiter actually ghosting out and not really following up. Just common courtesy. You had 10 candidates.
That's a factor.
You had 10 candidates, and you went through 9. You hired 1. What happened to the other 9? And what happens here is you get a jaded experience.
Yep.
And you get a lot of pushiness from some of the recruiters as well. They kind of like used car salesmen. I got this role for you. Come down this alley, meet me behind the dumpster.
Let me tell you what I kind of do.
And give me your references. I'm like, whoa, wait a second, buddy. I can't give you all my references because if I've already given 5 other recruiters my references, then what happens here is everybody starts calling. Now my references got 25 calls coming in, and they don't have that kind of bandwidth in their day to actually respond to all that, and then I burn out my references because they don't really want to.
Well, a lot of times they want to grab references from you to find out how they can get more candidates. So they actually use you as a method to find more candidates and build up their candidate base by utilizing your references. Is that I was working for recruiting companies from years ago before I started my own business, but called Bernie's Rule of 9, and basically, the candidate is the center of your universe. So what's the candidate? So let's give you guys a little insight here. So what's the candidate? The candidate, you should be able to get 3 job references, at least 3 references from that candidate. You're also going to get 3 places, let's say if you're on the agency side, or you're on the agency side, 3 places where that candidate has been to. So that's going to give them other types of jobs. And let's say 3 hiring managers actually that you actually spoke to. So that's also not going to say where you've been to, but hiring managers of people who you can directly call to get more jobs. And so they actually utilize candidates as a way to consistently to advance their business. Right. Okay. Part of the business. That's part of how the business kind of works.
That's why I try to, as much as possible, to subvert to get past recruiters. Honestly.
Well, some recruiters are very good because if you have, so like myself, I know that if I'm working with Kraft or some other or a couple other companies, and I'm looking, and they're looking for a very specific type of person, I see that person, they're going right in. So we're not going to waste time playing games that way, because name of the game for me is to get people hired and and generate commissions. All right. that's the real deal on the business side of the recruiting side. But so you don't want to waste time. You don't want to waste other people's time. You want to make sure that that person is right on point. But a lot of other companies, you're dealing with recruiting companies. They're trying to, pardon the expression, but data mine you. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
And get as much information out of you that they can utilize. So every candidate, like say Bernie's rule of 9, as they say, for every candidate you should have at least 9 contacts to where that you get from that person. That's the business. I'm just telling you kind of how that works.
And I think it's really important for candidates to kind of come to the table with a lot of recruiters, and also have their own things that they're trying to get from that. So a couple of things that I try to get is, one, what is the role? Who is the customer? And what is the urgency in them hiring for it? And then I'll have that conversation, and then I'll literally go to the customer website, and I'll apply there, and then reach out to individuals on LinkedIn who actually work for the organization, rather than focusing on the third party. Just like Mike said, I've had the very much so that jaded experience, and I'm like, I just get.
I just want to say this. I just want to say this very quickly.
Sure.
If you've given that person that resume, right, and they put that resume in there, and let's say if you try to go through a third party, then they'll try to claim and all that kind of stuff. So
I'll present it as a conversation.
Okay.
And I'm like,
you'll get excluded from the actual being hired directly through the company if that recruiting company put your resume in.
Right. That's why
you're
right away.
It's
conflict
called.
of interest.
Well, it's not even called. It's called being prired. So now they have so that company that you're recruiting with, they have a recruiting contract with that company. So any resume that comes through there, they actually have a claim on that for either 6 months or for a year.
So you also need to get permission for them to submit your resume. If you don't give them that,
you have to get permission, but people sometimes throw resumes in there all the time. It's the business is funny because it's about the money. So, but what you really want to do at times, but what you want to do is you definitely want to get with a recruiter who has a good relationship with that company.
Hard to find.
And you have that experience. So a lot of a lot of good people have gotten very good opportunities through recruiters. In fact, some companies, may not even put a job out really on a board like that because they may have some exclusive contracts with a recruiting company and give it to them first before they even put the job out there. So sometimes, some jobs may not be posted, but yet they're hiring and the recruiting company's maybe have an exclusive or so forth to getting people with that first. That's how a lot of that works too. So you have to understand the business. There's some complexities that go on. And I know them. But that's kind of how the game works. But yeah, some people they get a bad taste in their mouth at times from tech systems, or I don't know if you know Infotech. I don't know if you know
Infotech.
And these are consulting companies.
Absolutely.
That are third-party consulting companies, and they'll have permanent placements as well, and they're talking to 1,000. They have 101 companies that they're hiring for, and they're just going through resumes and they're just trying to find the right people as possible. And if they don't think you're the right candidate, they will interview you and sit down and get a lot of information from you to get to that candidate who they think might be right, and they may utilize you for that as well. So you have to understand that. You have to know how the game is played.
Yeah, but Gabe is 100% right. Leveraging LinkedIn by looking at that company and talking to people on the inside. At a certain point, you can get a rapport with that person. They see that you interested in that company. They'll even send you insider emails on jobs that are not posted, like you were talking about, Nagone, that are not posted publicly yet, and you can kind of get in that way, So
there is, but one thing I want to say also, most companies are going to be willing to pay a fee to a recruiting company. They're willing to pay them a fee. And I charge at 15, 20, depending on the type of job and position. It could be up to 30%. It's usually a position that's not easily found. You're not easily going to find somebody on the job board. not easily going to find somebody who's just going to mail their resume in. It's usually something that's got, some nuance, some high technical ability, or some rarer skills that is going to take somebody who is going to have to. I'm talking to you about the business now. You may have a person who may have a very rare skill set that may work with that company, but you're not going to find them so much in a resume coming through, to just do some job boards. But these people may be at another company. And so what the recruiter is going to have to do is call into that company, recruit that person out, and move them into another company. Okay. And usually money plays a role and the environment plays a role, but you have to get into, the real kind of hardcore aspects of what that's about. And, it becomes a bit more, executive or really kind of a hard technical search. So, now you're getting into the meat and potatoes of what this thing could really be about. So if you've got some basic skill, basic SQL developer or so forth, you look at that type of, then they may not, that might be easy enough for them to kind of get off the job boards because they have, in-house recruiters themselves who are able to do it. But a difficult type of search, just like myself, with a major Japanese bank that I'm dealing with a blockchain developer. I'm still kind of working with that right now. That's a more difficult search. You're not going to find these kind of guys out there just sending their resumes in. So, and these guys are kind of new on the game. But then again, that's $80,000 in my pocket just to make that placement. You follow what I'm saying? 250,000, so forth. So that's one hit. So this is what we're talking about. So the professionalism of how you have to go about really finding that type of person is different. It's different than just doing the job boards and finding them on Monster or Hot Jobs or wherever the hell, or somebody off LinkedIn just rolling through and going in. Most of the people I see on LinkedIn and so forth, not that good. The real super good people that I really see, you've got to really search. You've got to search. And I say they're not that good, but they're kind of run of the mill folks. You see a lot of them. The real difficult, programming skills and really unique type of skill set you're looking for. You've got to do a lot of searching, and that tends to be rating other companies, knowing another company's environment and calling in and literally getting a hold of those developers there in their tech departments and having those kind of conversations, which is more difficult, which another company can't do, but I can.
The thing is, guys who are, like blockchain developers and stuff like that, they're renegades. So they don't need LinkedIn. They can basically run their own game without social media, without any other sort of recruiters or anything like that. They kind of just write their own meal ticket. In fact, they usually create their own companies.
A lot do. It comes down to the money for a lot of guys. It comes down to the cash and the benefits and everything else that these guys have, and then appeal to some of their huge sense of egos and so forth that some of these people may have as well. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of moving pieces to this. So just getting into the recruiting business and really talking about it is a funky game. But and you're dealing with personalities and you're dealing with a lot of stuff. But to find these kind of people, you're right, and that's why connections and user groups and that kind of stuff like that, you will tend to do it more. But it's a much more involved search, much more involved than a hiring manager is going to have to do, or some in-house recruiters is really going to be getting involved with. So they have to get a specialist, a hired gun, somebody who really knows what they do. That's what they come to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I just try to get around that, because just like you mentioned, you're making a commission off of those individuals, right? So there's a particular percentage of those individuals' salary that you're actually earning off of.
That's
correct. I've noticed that there are certain recruiters who will tell me, oh yeah, I can put you in for like a $50, $55 an hour, when the role is really like 75 to 80. Like, but it's like, if I can go around that individual and not let them make money off of me, then I can put more money in my own personal pocket.
Difficult, because this is a business.
Sure.
And you are to be bought and sold. It's
absolutely.
But
I want more in mine than any recruiter can get from me. I don't know personally. I don't know.
I hear what you're saying, but you ain't gonna get around it, because at the end of the day.
Oh no, I have. No, let me not.
Oh no. I'm not saying you per se. I'm not saying you per se. You per se. You may do it when I say the collective you. most companies that are going to recruiters for difficult jobs, if a job, let's say it is 55 an hour, it's paying 75, that that recruiting company that's putting that that consultant on is, his margins may even be shorter than that. But they're working on short margins. That's why they want to get volume game going. But at the end of the day, they're gonna try to put that individual on and make a profit, because at the end of the day, if they're gonna put you on as a consultant, that recruiting company is gonna have to ultimately pay you. You're not gonna get paid directly from the company. You're gonna get paid from that recruiting company every week or every 2 weeks to to pay your salary. So you're gonna because now you're working as a consultant for them.
Cut the middleman, man. I don't know.
Well, because Gabe wants to be a runaway slave.
Yeah. But
instead of being a technology buck and being bought and sold.
Yeah.
No, like really, like.
But that's
Any
everybody.
other way to be? I don't know.
Asians, blacks, whites, and I don't care who you are.
I mean, is there any other way to be? I'm sorry, I don't know.
Well, then a lot of that, because a lot of times the very difficult, very high end positions that they're looking for a real top type of a person for, they're going to put out to an agency. They're going to put out to a firm. So you might even know about those, and then you'll find out about it by having a recruiter contact you, and then it may be the dream type of situation, but odds are more than anything else, it's going to be a recruiter calling you up for that.
Yeah.
Hey Gabe, just to throw this out there though, I mean you're 100% right. You should try to get as much as you can, but at the same time, certain positions they require you to go through a probationary period, and a lot of times they use subcontractors to put you into those positions or whatever to get those jobs, and you go through that probationary period until you come on to the company full time. So I mean, I agree with you, but sometimes you gotta, I think I made this statement before, sometimes you gotta go down to get back up. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, that's just my saying.
Oh yeah, I'm just giving you the business side of the game, and it's a hard nose, it's a hard nosed business, but there's an awful lot of money in it, on both sides. So you shouldn't worry so much about what the recruiter's making. You should make sure that whatever that recruiter's doing, he's working on your behalf to get you the best dollars and into the best situation you can get yourself into, because it's a mutually beneficial game. That's why I've liked the recruiting game and the project management game a lot more also than the finance game, because at times finance, you made people money, or your stocks went up, stocks went down, you made money, but sometimes people might get killed. But usually, when I say get killed, lose money. But usually in this business, it tends to be more of a win-win type of situation.
I'm doing the work. Anyway, I don't mean to belabor the point, so I'll let it continue.
Yeah. You're doing the work, and the recruiter's doing the work. Finding you and
why give you my money? It's mine. I don't know.
Well, it's not your money. It's not your money. It's the corporation's money.
The corporation is paying for my services, right? So,
but they're not taking any money out of your pocket.
I'm telling you, I've been in situations where they do. So
no, I don't know what you're talking about.
Let me just say this. My perspective. Let me give you my perspective.
Let me give you the facts first. If you're looking to get paid, a job,
okay,
for like say you're a data architect or whatever, and you're getting paid, let's say $200,000 a year. That's a salary, $200K. All right, $200K. You may get a bonus at the end of the year as well. Okay, depending if you're working for a bank or something like that, you might be a part of a profit center, so you might be getting a certain part of the profits that may be going on that center as well, which could take you potentially maybe into a seven-figure type of an income. So you get a $200,000 base salary, and you might get another $600,000 or $700,000 on your let's say on your bonus, depending on what's really going on, or to get, it could be unlimited, or it could be a 50% bonus.
Okay.
Regardless. Okay.
Sure.
All right. That's what the company's paying you. I'm going to get paid, say 30% on that. Okay. The company's paying me a fee to find you. They're not taking any money out of your pocket, because you're still getting that 200,000, and I can't even bill out on what your bonus is going to be.
So what are you billing out? So you're billing out my salary plus whatever you make, right?
Okay, your salary is as a percentage,
right?
Okay, is what the company is going to pay me, not of your salary taken out of your salary, but that's the fee.
But you're submitting me me for a certain rate, right? You're submitting.
No, I'm not. If you're a consultant, it's one thing. If you're a permanent placement, it's something a little bit different. All right, but
so that $200K plus your 30% of that $200K.
I'm not getting paid $200,000. I'm getting paid 30%.
No, I'm saying the base salary. Yeah, 30% of that $200K or 30% on top of that $200K.
30% on top of that $200K. What do you mean?
So what
do you mean?
So there's $200K that the employee is receiving, and then you're receiving 30% of that.
Yeah, the company is paying me 30% of what your salary would be.
So when you submit
that money's not coming out of your salary.
Wait, but
basically what he's saying.
So when you I'm just trying to get this clear. So when you submit me, you're not submitting me as 200K. You're submitting me as 200K times 0.3 times 200K. Right?
Oh.
No. What he's saying is those guys, those recruiters get a percentage. It's all based on the amount the job is for. So
absolutely.
If the job is getting paid is 200,000, then all they're doing is getting a percentage of that amount on that job, not out of your money.
Let me tell you,
that's not out of your money.
Percentage of that amount.
Yeah. You think somebody's taking money out of your pocket.
No, can I tell you the scenario?
Hold on a second. There is no scenario. I'm telling you what the situation is.
I'm telling you what I've experienced.
The firm. Okay.
To keep in mind that Nagona is a recruiter himself, so that's he's telling you.
The company has a budget.
All right.
The company has the HR department. They have a budget to pay fees for certain types of jobs that they're going to pay a recruiter to find somebody out for. So it's like, okay, you found this guy. I'm going to pay you XYZ for finding this guy. This is your fee for finding him. All right. Your money and what you're getting paid. All right. That is what the company has already slated that job to be paid for. They're paying me a fee to do that.
I would like to tell the scenario which I've experienced. Can I tell you? But okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So
Go ahead.
The thing that I've experienced is that it was actually several roles, right? But this one was very particular. This particular recruiter in this company was very hard set. Like I had put a rate out there, right? The one I was telling you about, I'm like, this is my particular rate, 75 to 80. They're like, oh no, it's only about 55 an hour for this particular role. I'm like, oh, a word? Like that's it? Because I know what I'm doing. Like this is what this role is going for. So I just agreed to it. I'm like, yeah, I'll just use this as a negotiation piece with other roles, but I'm not going to be hard stead on it. I go to the interview. I'm in front of the hiring manager, and the hiring manager started talking numbers with me. So I start talking numbers back with her, and she's saying, "Oh yeah, these individuals submitted you for $80 an hour. Is that an okay rate?" I'm like, really? Like really? Like that's what they're submitting me for? So they're telling me 55. They submit me for $80 an hour. So they're making something on top of. I mean, it's some miscommunication. Not only I don't think there's miscommunication. I think there is an intentional miscommunication with me on what they're actually submitting me for. I was able to go around them and be able to get the actual rate in which I was requesting rather than the $55 that they were throwing out to me. This is the scenario.
Okay.
This is the scenario and the perspective that I'm coming from and why I'm speaking of what I've actually experienced.
So what you're saying as a consultant, because you weren't going as a full-time person. You were going in as a consultant. So basically, they told you the rate of which they were paying the company 80, and you said that the company said that they were going to pay you 55.
They told me the recruiting company told me 55.
Yeah. Right. So you cut the company out, and then you basically went direct with that company. Is that correct?
I went directly with the hiring manager's company.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Hold on a second. So you went directly with the hiring manager's company.
Yes.
All right. And then you got that direct rate
Absolutely.
Of what you had $80 an hour.
Yeah.
And so the recruiting company that sent you in, they themselves, what did they say to you about that? Did they have an issue?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't have anything to do with me.
Okay.
Because the offer letter didn't come from them. The offer letter came from the company.
So you were direct with the company, and they paid you and you did a 1099 a corp to corp with them. Is that correct? Hello? You there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. So okay. you did a 1099 with that company. Is that correct? Or
No.
You did a corp to corp.
No, this is a W-2.
So you work directly for them. Something doesn't sound right because you're a consultant. So as a consultant, they pay you either on a 1099. A W-2 means that you're working for them as a full-time employee.
It was a W-2. So that was the scenario. It was a contracting role for a W-2.
I haven't heard of that. All right. Anyway. All right. Anyway.
Yeah, right. I know what Gabe is actually talking about. They got these shady companies out here, i.e., well, I don't want to say their name, but they contract, they get the money up front from the company. They're basically a subcontractor.
Yep.
They get, like, let's say the position is $200,000. They take a cut out of the money that the position is for. They take a cut and pay you the rest.
Yep.
So, I mean, there are those companies out there, and I say one of them everybody knows is Tech Systems.
Yep, Tech Systems. Yep.
And Robert Half. They do the exact same thing.
I know Robert. I have two consultants on right now. I have two consultants on right now that I work with. So I understand this business intimately. So that's why I was asking you those direct questions.
Yeah,
W-2s.
So, I mean,
Anyway, all right, guys. All right, you guys got it.
All right, let me get to this last article, man. This one is from CNBC.com. Race doesn't impact how job seekers negotiate salaries, but it does affect how much money they get. Conventional wisdom holds that you should negotiate your salary when you apply for a job, since that usually won't hurt your chances of landing an offer as long as you remain likable, and pocketing a few extra $1,000 every year can add up as you get older. And when it comes to negotiating, there's no shortage of advice on what works and what doesn't. You should know what you're worth, for instance, and be ready to justify why you're asking for more. But regardless of how much you prepare, new research suggests that if you're Black, racial bias can lessen the offer you end up receiving. Racially biased job evaluators see Black job seekers as less deserving of higher monetary rewards and take issue when the Black job seekers ask for more. Morella Hernandez, an associate professor at the University of Virginia, tells CNBC Make It. In the paper, Bargaining While Black, Hernandez and her colleagues suggest this bias may explain the significant racial wage gap in the US. In 2016, Pew Research Center reported that college-educated Black men earn 20% less than college-educated white men. That's the difference between making $25 and $32 an hour. Meanwhile, college-educated Black women earn 8% less than college-educated white women. When you don't account for education, the gap becomes even more significant. The researchers identified the salary negotiation process as a potential contributor to this trend through a series of experiments. In the first study, participants completed a survey to determine their own racial bias. Then they looked at resumes and headshots to estimate the likelihood that hypothetical job seekers would negotiate their salaries. Participants who demonstrated racial bias, the researchers found, expected Black job seekers would negotiate less than white job seekers. Participants were randomly assigned assigned to be either hiring evaluators or job candidates, and in one-on-one scenarios negotiated for a salary between $82,000 to $90,000. Race had no real effect on how much the candidates negotiated, but some of the participants incorrectly thought it did. Racially biased job evaluators consistently overestimated the number of offers and counter offers Black job seekers made, says Hernandez. This underlines how our brains can see something that isn't in fact there by virtue of the lens we use to interpret the situation. Biased evaluators expected Black job seekers to negotiate less than the white job seekers. Yet once the researchers put it to the test, those evaluators thought that the Black job seekers actually negotiated more. As a result, they were less willing to make concessions. In other words, because their expectations were violated, they gave the Black candidates less money. Each time a Black job seeker was perceived to have made an offer or counter offer, it corresponded in the receipt of over $300. On average, less in starting salary, the report states. In light of these findings, the researchers note that being aware of your own biases can help diminish their effects. They suggest that companies can benefit from training hiring managers to help ensure more equitable salary outcomes for incoming Black and white employees. Previous research has demonstrated that Black men expect lower starting salary offers and also may not have the same foundation to confidently know what fair market value they can command, says co-author Derek Avery, a professor at Wake Forest University School of Business. But the hiring process shows it's not just the job seeker's mindset that must change. Hiring managers who negotiate with Black candidates also bring their biases to the table. Go on. What's your analysis on this? I think Nicole may be away. All right, I'll give my perspective on this, and maybe Nicole could.
All right, I'm sorry. I was trying to get off of mute here for a second. So they're saying that Black employees, potential employees, are getting less dollars
based on the biases of their hiring managers or the HR people.
Race is always an issue in anything that you're going to deal with. So this is definitely entirely possible. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't doubt some of this. I just know the people that I work with are getting the top dollar, regardless of your race. And I've seen some Black tech people that I've had get hired at the highest, at the highest dollars. But then again, these companies like CREF and kind of like, like Bank of America and so forth, they have, policies such that, that they look for diversity and so forth. So whatever that job was scaled for, that individual was certainly qualified for it. That's the money they were going to go get. I had a situation where I had a guy who played a tech role, but he also had a real estate, how would I say, director's role as well. And they had a mixed background. This was a Black individual. A company came in, made him an offer of 140. He didn't really want to take it. He thought it was very low. And then they had a meeting and they said, listen, we like this guy. This guy's skill set is great. So what he wants, we're going to give him. And, and he wanted 165, and that's exactly what they gave him. So, and I pulled him out of a company. I had to recruit and pull him out of a company called Lennar. You guys might be aware of who they are. But anyway, I was able to do that. So the money, the dollars that he got was not only average, but was above. So I think a lot of that comes down sometimes to the recruiter. I know the Black recruiters. I don't know. exactly how many of us are out there, but we're not a major part of the recruiting business. But certainly, if you're Black and you have the skill set, you're supposed to get the even dollars. But if there is some levels of discrimination that's out there that may mitigate those dollars for the other companies, I would say that's entirely possible. Maybe these people don't know that they're maybe even getting lesser dollars until they find out. Salaries are supposed to be hidden or whatever the job is recruited for should say what that salary is, and people may be getting higher dollars on those salaries than what's posted. And that very well could be the case. That very well could be the case. And this is white America, and they're hiring. That could easily be possible. I have seen in the tech industry, on the whole, Black people, the few who do get step up to the plate and have the skill sets and get in there, they get the scale rates, man. They get what's what's out there. They get their right money. So that's all I can say. But to say that this is happening in the industry, I'm not experiencing so much that myself. But to say this is happening in the industry, I would say, yeah, this is quite possible. This is going on. With to me, without question, this could easily be happening. Easily.
There was actually a conversation about this on like Black Tech Twitter. I don't know if you guys keep kind of up on what's happening there. Is that a lot of times they were saying that like Black people don't really negotiate the correct rates for the roles that they're applying to because they're ignorant of what those rates really are. And a lot of that comes from this kind of secrecy of salary conversation. Like people don't talk about how much they make, or it's always like a kind of a secret. And a lot of times our white counterparts talk about their salaries. I was able to get this from this type of role, where they'll have these conversations on the regular. So I think that's one thing. And again, that conversation, maybe a couple last year was really big, but that was one of the points, is that a lot of times we don't know the rates to negotiate. We negotiate lower because we don't really communicate what those rates are with each other. So we're coming into the negotiation table ignorant of what those rates are that role commands.
I think it's the article is pretty spot on. The problem is, especially for Black men making 20% less than their white male counterparts, and Black women making 8% less. But this is interesting because the problem is that there's a blatant bias in the hiring practice, and they don't want to acknowledge that, right? And the EEOC is supposed to cover all of these areas, so that you're not actually practicing this, but yet they seem to still continue to do it despite all the policies in place. That being said, there are ways to actually mitigate against this. Dell has a structured salary process up front, and it's pretty visible. So you can't offer someone less than what the structured rate is already in place. So you have a Series A or Series B, Series C sort of salary for a candidate, and it's not like, oh, well, this person who's doing the same job is getting less than you or anything like that. Everyone gets paid the same for the same role. So I think what's happening with a lot of companies is that they're obviously it's being run by racist people, but they're also liberals. They're not, these conservatives who vote GOP and stuff like that. No, these are very much liberals who vote for Bernie Sanders, feel the burn. I'm with her, Hillary Clinton. They support these types of people, and they make it seem as if, oh, we're not racist. There's no racial bias here. What are you talking about? And it's BS. It's complete BS. And a lot of Black men are suffering from this. They suffer going into this. I think Gabe talked about this earlier. They try to offer $55, and the real rate was like $80. So you have to go around them to get around it, to get around the whole process. But that's a part of the issue, is that there's some I'm Nagon, I think you're making a lot more noise. Let me put you on mute. the issue here is that there is an urgency on their behalf to try to undermine you salary wise, but there's no real benefit for them to actually do it. It's not coming out of that hiring manager's pocket. It's not coming out of the HR person's pocket. It's actually coming out of the company's pocket. And then when we have these discrepancies in income per capita between black and white, we're scratching our head saying, well, I don't understand what the problem is. No, you know exactly what the fucking problem is. You're doing this on purpose. You know exactly what you're doing. So I think when it comes to negotiating your salary, use Indeed. Indeed is a great tool for kind of getting a better idea of what the nationwide salary rate is for a role. And then you want to add 10% plus onto that. At least 10% plus is a bare minimum to that hourly rate or that salary, and then you negotiate backwards and not upwards, right?
All jobs will post what the salary is. You should know what the salary is. If you're looking at an hourly rate on the position, and let's say you're applying it for yourself and it's an $80 an hour role, then you know that it's an $80 an hour role. Okay, you know it's an $80 an hour role. Okay, if you're a permanent placement employee, they're not going to put you on staff or salary for $80 an hour when you're a permanent employee. They don't do that.
No,
Okay,
you get a yearly salary.
You get a yearly salary. All right. The only time they give you an hourly rate is when it's either 1099 or corp to corp. That's how that works.
No,
well,
okay.
no, not necessarily.
That's not
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. When I work for Dell,
but let me finish my point. If you know what that rate is, you know exactly what that rate is. These guys can't, and that's what you're going in for. You can't go in there they can't fuck with your money like that.
If you know
exactly. Oh, listen to me. If you know exactly what's going on, I'm not saying that they don't do it. Of course they do it. Of course, and what Mike is saying is right as far as that these liberals or whatever, come undercut you and try to pay you less money. Yeah. So whatever company that you're applying for that position for, you best know what that salary is. You have to know what that salary or what those rates are. You have to know. Sometimes people go in and they may not be totally aware of it. Well, this job may be paying anywhere from 150 to 170. You'll have a job that will come out and say that 150 to 170. That's $20,000 difference. That's a pretty decent little percentage there from one to another. If they're paying in between that rate, then they can potentially pay you less. Pay you say 155, but somebody else may come in, they may pay them 170 or maybe 175. Who's a white person? They may do that. That may happen. I can easily see where that happens. So that's why I always like to go in. That's why you really have to understand what your value is and really push for the highest salary, the highest rate there. And that's why sometimes recruiters can come in. That's why sometimes recruiters can come in and play a role there. But if you're going for that role yourself on your own, and you're hitting that on your own, man. You're going that for yourself. You've got to know exactly where what the play in that salary is, and and that hiring manager can tell you, or like I said, you can go on Indeed and see exactly where the averages are. You can go on LinkedIn, and find out where that is as well, and then look at the company profile and see, and in the job description that they may have. They may even post a job on LinkedIn as well in the company profile, and see exactly where that rate is. So that's part of your due diligence. That's a part of what you have to really go in on. And then you got to stick towards a rate that you want. But sometimes if they're going to sit back and pay people a little bit more because they're white than you are black, that's a difficult quandary to get in, and sometimes that's difficult to stop. They may pay you 155. They may pay somebody else 170, 175 on that. And working for these white companies, that's difficult to kind of close in on at times. It is what I'm going to say. But you have to be very aware of where the dollars are, and you should be asking for top dollar at all times. If your skill sets are there, be asking for that top dollar consistently. I think that's about the best you can really do. There's no guarantee that you can get hired in the job and you're going to get the top rate unless you really push for it. And if they can cut you back, and if that company can hold a little bit more extra in their budget and put a little extra in their bonuses and so forth, and take a little bit out of yours, and they're putting more in their bonus package because you're a black guy, and they can get a good person at a slightly cheaper rate. They're certainly going to try that. Certainly are.
Well, go ahead, keep it techie.
But I guess what I'm saying is the root of the problem is, for me, I guess, is that the mindset of, or not the mindset, but the I mean, where we all come from. You know what I'm saying? The background and all that stuff. I think that plays a role in it, in the whole negotiation process. Because I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you, bro. I never thought I would be making over $100,000 a year. I never thought I would get offered that. And so, as far as the negotiation, that was the last thing on my mind. I'm like, shit, $100,000? That's what's up. You know what I'm saying? Not knowing that these other people are, getting maybe $20,000 more than me, and I kick myself in the butt about situations I went through in the past on certain jobs or whatever, that I should have been more negotiable within these trying to get these positions, and I think it ties back though to where we come from. I guess that's my whole point or take or whatever.
I think what happens with black people is that they're afraid to negotiate. The ones who can negotiate are afraid to negotiate because they think if they ask for too much, that they'll be disqualified from the position.
That's exactly what that is.
And
that's
yeah,
huge.
you're right.
And
That's
that plays
exactly.
that plays
Right.
into the self-esteem aspect, as well as the racial bias aspect, where you think that, well, if I just accept this, man, they'll be quick to hire me. If I accept less, they'll probably be quick to. If I negotiate backwards, I'll be better off than trying to negotiate upwards.
Yeah,
And
That's correct, because you sell yourself for less, and if you sell yourself for less, and they see they can get you for less, they'll do that. They'll do it.
Yeah, it's very dangerous because you can kind of pigeonhole yourself into a certain salary range, because a lot of times you negotiate your salary based upon some previous salary that you've had or acquired. So you kind of, a lot of times, typically, if you're going from role to role, you kind of move up in your salary range. And I think that, again, part of the problem, just to keep as Techie was saying, is that mentality. Is that also, I think another dimension to what he was saying is that we at times from our community feel as if we're so lucky to have a job. We're so lucky that these people are hiring us, rather than having the mentality that they're lucky to have me, right? I have this skill set. I'm able to provide these particular solutions to the problems of this organization. And they're lucky to have me on their roster in order to produce a very positive output.
Usually it's because black people are usually the first, the ones who are receiving this sort of salary are the first ones to receive it in their family.
Yeah.
So you throw $100,000 at a young black male coming out of the hood.
Yep.
With that skill set, that's like, I'm gone. I don't even have to negotiate this. You don't have to say anything more. Whereas the white male is going to be like, nah, I don't know about this. You're going to have to offer me more with my mayonnaise face.
It definitely comes down to knowing how to negotiate, negotiating skills. A lot of us don't really know how to really negotiate. And that's a big part of it. Some of this really comes out of ignorance, and not to say that we have to just blame that on blame the victim, if you will. But some people don't know that, so you have to really get a better sense of your value. I don't think it's the fact that I'm lucky to be hired by you. No, it's not the fact that you're lucky to be hired. It's like
some people feel that way. Yeah,
some people might, but they're glad to be hired, and I have to agree with Mike as far as, they feel if they push too high on the money, people will get nervous, and say, oh, well, I'm asking for too much. And, in fact, with companies like,
especially when you,
I was going to say this, what companies like are people who have strong skill sets, and they push for the highest rate. They kind of expect that from you.
But
So,
according to the article says otherwise, right? So the article is saying that when Black people do try to negotiate higher, that they're more likely to be the recruiter or the hiring manager may be less likely to negotiate with them. This is the conundrum that Black people are going through.
Well, they say that they may be less likely, but so much of it depends on what your skill sets are, what the real needs of the job are. People, I always say with anyone, when we talk about negotiating, stick to our guns. We shouldn't be taking less. Stick to your guns. This is what you're looking for. This is the bottom line number that you're going to go with and negotiate. Now, like I said, some of this stuff is tough. It's tough. It's kind of tough to deal with, because if somebody is really going to offer you a lot more money, or they may offer somebody else more money in a role because they're white, and you may not know about it. To say the job, like I said, is going anywhere from 150 to 170, and they may give somebody 175. The odds are they may probably give that white person the higher salary there. That's just white on white kind of business. That's where the white game kind of can come in and mitigate. Not to say that we should accept that, but that can happen. So that's why I say I can see why something like this could happen. But I say you have to always push. You always have to negotiate and push for the highest dollars. And if you're a good candidate if you really sold yourself well, the odds are that they'll play in your favor where it will go favorably for you. But it can go against you. It certainly can. We are dealing with white folks, and they tend to remunerate themselves better than others at times. Better than you.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, I'm sorry.
Go right ahead, Joe.
That's what I was gonna say though. I mean, adding to the fact of you can't really say that, because adding to the fact, I mean, you sitting in a boardroom with like 6 other white folks that you cannot relate to, and negotiating is kind of the last thing on your mind. You're trying to actually get the fucking job, huh? I'm sorry.
You're going through intimidation.
Yeah, I guess. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, right. You're surrounded by people who don't look like you, who don't have your best interests for the most part, and are basically saying, either you sign here or get lost. That sort of deal. You're worried more about losing the opportunity than to negotiate up, and that becomes a problem. And I think that if most companies had structured their salaries by levels and scale, that would reduce all of this inequality that they're going through. Dell did a great job at doing this, and now to prevent women from earning less. So now everybody in the same security setting gets the same exact salary, and no one can complain about who's getting more money, because it's pretty transparent. If you have a master's degree, you shoot to a higher role, like a principal security role, without having the experience. Well, we know that women have more education than men, at least in the Black community. So those roles are almost already available to them. The problem with these other companies that don't want to adopt this sort of structure and philosophy is that there's a vested interest in undermining people who don't look like them.
They're more racist. I mean, if you're going to deal with a more racist company, they're going to be a bit more racist in how they will compensate you. I know for TIA Cref, they had a former Black president of the company there and everything else like that. No, TIA Cref, man, come on, man. But what I was going to say was that these guys had a diversity initiative. They had to hire Black people. They had to have this going on. They had to have certain salaries to be paid, and people came in making the right dollars. They couldn't play the racial money game as much as this company is an older white WASP company, where you have entitled white folks coming in and saying, I should be hired in this position because I'm entitled to have this job. you know, and you see that goes on a lot, and you see that a lot going on in corporate America all over. I am entitled. I am a white, Anglo-Saxon. I've been out here. My family came over on the Mayflower, or whatever. I am entitled to this, and I should be getting this. And some companies have actually sat down and said, "Hold on one second. We're gonna shift this around a little bit, and we're gonna make sure this thing is right." So it's the integrity of the company, but you to get around the racial aspect that happens in corporate America and how they pay is an ongoing problem. It's an issue.
Yeah.
It's
I was
definitely
gonna
push it as much as you can. My deal is anyone who I'm dealing with, I'm pushing that salary is to the highest levels. To the highest levels, as high as we can get it. But at the end of the day, sometimes the racial game can be played. And that is a part of the landscape. How are we going to get around that is going to be, like Mike said, companies that can, definitely, put, a cap on what salaries are. Exactly what they are. They're not going to go over it and whatever. And everybody's going to be kind of equal to come in and play on a level playing field. Fair enough. But America, to a large extent, this is not really an even playing field for us. So
I think that another way that I think that we can kind of step to the table to kind of fight against some of this is a practical solution is not only coming to the table with one offer from that organization, but actually having additional offers, right? So you are kind of working from a position of a bit additional power, right? I have offers from 1, 2, or 3 different organizations.
Always.
And if you guys are telling me, hey, you're going to pass up on me, well, you aren't the only name in the game right now. So I'm coming to the table with some already established offers that I haven't accepted yet. But if we are able to come to some type of understanding, you guys might be able to move up in the prioritization of the organizations that I want to come to. So
you're talking about a very key principle. We call it the takeaway. Mm-hmm. This is what the takeaway is. The takeaway is, well, I'm going to take myself off the table. Okay, I've got this company that's offering me this. I got this company offering me this. I got this company offering me this. And I'm probably going to go over here. Probably going to go over here. This is what I've got. I've got these offers on the table right now. Let's talk about this, or and if there's nothing else to talk about, then I'm just gonna go.
Yeah.
So now I'm gonna take my chips off the table and leave. I'm taking my chips off the table and leave. Hold on one second. Don't go anywhere yet.
Yeah, exactly. I've gotten that way more.
Hold on. Okay, hold it,
every
Peter.
time.
Hold it, Peter. Let's sit down and talk about this.
Yep.
So now all of a sudden now you're in another negotiating process.
Indeed.
Calling the takeaway. It's a great selling technique. And you can use that in business, and you can also use that in other types of situations. Yeah. Well, but anyway, that certainly is something that that you can certainly play. I always say get 2, 3 different offers on the table.
I at least have about 2 or 3 before I'm going after my big fish.
We'll pick and choose what's the best, because everyone's going to come in. So that certainly is definitely a strategy. And in the IT game, you can play that, because there's a lot of work out there, and you can kind of get around that. But the racial game, the animus towards Black folks, and they managers not wanting to really hire you, and these kind of things,
right.
that's part of America. Mm-hmm. And we have to fight it, but that is a natural part of the landscape, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you guys touched on an important component earlier, and I think that's the candid conversations that Black men have about salary. Really haven't had too many conversations thus far. Obviously, just Black men in general are entering new realms as far as getting certain positions, because historically we've been denied access to education. So now that Black men are a lot more educated, and they're actually pursuing some of these positions, now we're actually getting into this realm, and it's uncharted territory. So you don't really understand what that actual ceiling is for what your salary demands are. And so that plays into negotiation process as well. But another component that I think that we're overlooking, when we look at what the article stated about the aversion to hiring entities to giving Black men that maximum salary, as well as Black women to a certain extent. Although the actual divide, the chasm, as you will, between contemporaries as far as salary is greater amongst men than it is amongst women for some reason. When we look at that reluctance, we have to ask ourselves, does it stop there, or does it extend to other aspects of the hiring practice? Because one of the things that I'm concerned about is that Black people not being considered for position at all. Now, when we look at highly specialized individuals who have a very unique skill set, that actual selection pool becomes increasingly smaller. But let's take, for instance, individuals who don't have a specialized skill set. Maybe they're college educated, but the actual selection pool is a lot greater. So now you have contemporaries of various ethnicities, and maybe there's people that are white, and we're talking about Black and white, but let's look at other groups as well. So now we're going into what I like to call a spectral continuum, where there may be different echelons of desirability based on your skin tone, and maybe they can't find a suitable white candidate, but perhaps there's a candidate who's Asian. Perhaps there's a candidate who's Latino. Perhaps there's a candidate who's of East Indian descent, who would be chosen over a highly just as capable Black candidate. So now when you're actually looking at competing for a particular position, now you're out of the running. Never mind getting the position and being offered a lower salary. Let's take let's think hypothetically about people.
Hold a second. I have an example to give you. I have an example. I've seen this played in so many different ways. I have this is a fraternity brother of mine for a very big Fortune 100 company, and he was in a hiring manager's position. He was a 7-figure guy, and he was hiring for a certain kind of position. I'm not even going to say what the positions were. And he had some negative experiences when he was coming up the ranks, and he had come up the hard way, and he had earned his way to this spot. He was making great degree of money and was in a hiring position. He told me when I was doing recruitment for him, and I made a lot of money with him. He said, "I don't want to see any Jews, and I don't want to see any Jewish women come through here." This was a brother, and we didn't hire any Jews. Jewish guys and Jewish women were to be avoided like the plague. So I had to kick those resumes to the side. This is a brother in this position. So he was hiring brothers and a few other white boys, and that was it. It was ill. I've been there. I've seen this. So when we start to talk about, so he bringing the Jews in. No Jews. Brother, no Jews. And he was in a higher position. He was the gavel on this one. Either you were in or out. Now, if we're gonna say that this doesn't happen in any other places, it does. It goes on all the time. It's just how it is.
Let's finish your statement.
All right. So I just want to say that. Okay, I'm not Gabe Beatrice. Go ahead, but that's just to piggyback on that point. Go ahead, man. Go ahead, brother.
I think that was a great interjection, because Nagone just referenced an example where an individual had that actual power to dictate who would be hired, and this was from a perspective of somebody who was African American, but understanding the climate that we're in, that is more of an anomaly.
He had bad experiences with Jews,
and that's more. That's more of an anomaly, though.
It is an anomaly, but still, I saw it. I was there.
So imagine on the opposite end of the spectrum, where most of the actual job seekers are pursuing employment with individuals who are not Black. So if you're Black and you're pursuing employment with, say, for instance, an Asian, or pursuing employment with somebody who's white, and let's bear in mind, other ethnic groups a lot of times are even more racist. They view Blacks as more of a threat, and so they will stop at nothing to prevent us from getting in these particular positions. So that's just something that I want people to think about. I don't want to go too long-winded on that, but I just want people to conceptually think about how I think a lot of Black people are even denied the position. This further contributes to the socioeconomic disparities that we see so frequently in statistics. Beyond just the salary differences, people just being denied the job at all entirely.
Yeah, and that's something that we brought up months ago with a former panel member, where there was an experiment done on LinkedIn. Same profile, just different avatars. One was black male, one was a white male, and the white male got twice as many hits as the black male with the same profile. So, and more solicitations from recruiters just based on that alone. So I think what's happening here is, despite all of this diversity and inclusion, rainbow flags and Cinco de Mayos and things like that, all these companies that promote all this stuff, man, they really have not gone into detail or gone into depth on their inclusionary practices. They seem to really leverage Black women over Black men because they feel that double minority quota, gender and race or ethnicity. And unfortunately, a lot of sisters eat that up, and hee ha ha in your face, and rub it all in your face that they're successful and you're not, you're dominated and whatnot. But the main issue for Black males is that how do you translate that into something that's more actionable from a result perspective? Because a lot of Black men are being closed out of these opportunities for no other reason other than the fact that they are Black males. So my thing is, that's why I push for certifications a lot. You got to get your weight up first. You got to get your mind right first, and you can't, because you can't control how they think and how they move, but you can control your your own battleship, man, your own area of expertise. So get your stuff together first, and then you can point the finger. But at the same time, you really don't have any control over how they, their hiring practices, man.
That's the bottom line. Control what you could control. Mike is dead on it. Control what you can control. You control your skill set. You control your experience. You control the things that are within your purview. What you cannot control, like my man T said, nah, man, no Jews up in this spot. Ain't happening. That was it. And I was like, whew, I didn't say anything. I didn't say a word. I just went on about my business. But that's just, and you have to think about, if that's what happened here at my level, dealing with what I was dealing with, what do you think is going on with other whites and others who were saying some of the same things about us? No Negroes. Okay, maybe one, but that's about it. They have that kind of thing, and we don't want to be at a certain rate, and they have that there. And if there's somebody I think wrote in the chat who writes the checks, calls the shots, it's about where we're coming from. Not to say there's nothing that you can do, because you can certainly press, and that's something that we should be doing on a regular and consistent basis. But this is an ongoing issue, and
but the problem is with this, he who writes the checks writes the in that statement, is that you have to, in a lot of places, even in California now, you got to have a woman on the board of your directors or something like that now. So there's these policies in place that's supposed to assure that this does not happen, and yet you still see white people bringing in their biases into the workplace, and even some foreigners bringing in their biases that they've adopted from white people.
And I've seen a Black man, very, very highly placed, bring those same biases in as well. And it was
the gatekeeper.
It wasn't against his people. It was against another group.
Well,
he had personal animus against.
And you know what?
Those guys did not get hired. So it goes across the board. I'm bringing that out as a point of reality, that we have to look at how this works within the human species.
But Black people are not in control of these industries in that way.
Mostly that is correct. And if we were, we would be doing some of the same things.
Not necessarily.
I don't believe at the same level, but we would be doing that. So help me God, we would.
I think because Black men are victims. I think because Black men are victims of this, they know going in that they probably don't want. They're going to try to treat people I think to the utmost in equality.
Most will,
Yeah.
some will not.
Well, you got your 80-20 rule, right? 80% probably would and 20% probably would not. But what I'm saying here is
Maybe.
black people, it's insignificant to use black people discriminating on a job when they don't really control any of those industries as a rule.
I'm just bringing it up as a point of reality. I'm just saying that this goes. What I'm saying is this goes on. So yes, white folks, in the job, in their hiring practices, some of them are going to utilize their racial position to either limit, as much as you will make, or you may not even get the position at all. This still goes on, and we fight it because you have EEOC and all that. They're all over the place, and all these companies have to be compliant because they get federal dollars in which to do so. Whether most people don't understand that or not, companies get subsidized to do this. So, but still, it does. It still does happen.
I mean,
Hey, go ahead, Tris.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think the difference is that black employment entities will be held accountable for biased hiring practices, as opposed to their white contemporaries. That's the big difference. So even if you try to employ some biased hiring practices, it wouldn't last long. It will quickly come to an end because somehow it will be brought to light, and then you'll be held accountable. And so I think one of the things that I want to mention in particular, one thing I did for the first time is that I actually put my actual picture up. So I've never had a problem ever getting a job, ever. Always got a job very, very quickly, never had an issue. But now with technology, you have, LinkedIn profiles with your image, things of that nature. And one thing in particular, when I was attempting, I was considering going to Germany, attempting to going to Las Vegas as well. And I had basically applied to some positions, and I wasn't hired at all. And it was like I was looking at, and then like a couple of positions I wasn't even given an interview, which has never happened. No, I know for sure I was overqualified. And so then what I did for the Germany position, I had an inside track. So I knew somebody that knew somebody. And so this person basically took my application. Took my resume. Now, mind you, I redid a different resume. And so this person submitted my resume to the person that was directly responsible for overseeing the hiring process. And this person was like, oh, when can he start? Get him over here, blah, 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 this, that, and the third. Now, they had just seen my resume with my picture on it. But now when I send my resume without a picture, to say, they probably got so many resumes, they probably didn't even know the difference. But when they seen the resume without the picture, all of a sudden they were interested, which was crazy. Same qualifications, same person, but without the picture, you look at my name, because my name, to be honest, I have a white name. I have a white person's name. I'm named after my father, but I have a white person's name. And so when people see my name, they automatically think, okay, well, where are you from, blah, blah, because they see that name, it's like a white person's name. So if I don't have my picture on my resume, then nobody would know. So that's a prime example of me having experience in a healthcare field where you consistently hear of shortage of nursing and blah, 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 this, that, and the third, where I overqualified or more than qualified for a position, but was denied.
Oh, it's funny. I bring up an example. I had actually got hired by this company, but this was some years ago, and this is after I had come back from Russia. And I knew a little Russian, and I was talking to one of the guys on the phone who was phone interviewing me, and we were just talking, and I was just using my business voice, and basically he had called me in to come in for the interview, and we had talked about Russia. We had talked about Russian phrases, and it was a good time. The guy really liked me, and I ended up working for the company for 3 years. But anyway, when I walked through the door, he was surprised. He said, "I thought you were Russian."
What's his name? RBR.
but basically, he thought I was a white Russian dude. That's what he was thinking. And and then we sat down, and then after the initial shock, I guess he sat down and we talked, and then we came to an agreement. And I ended up working for the company. Had a great time there. But when he said, "I thought you were Russian," I thought you're a Russian guy. Basically saying, I didn't know you were black. That's what that was.
Hey, Gabe has his hand up. Let's go to Gabe.
And I got him. So yeah, that happened.
I was going to say that it's interesting that there are like these biases where individuals don't really want to hire African Americans into their organizations based upon name and the way that we look and everything. And the way I also think about it is that I don't want to work for organizations that have those biases internally. So if I know, like a lot of times I think that one thing that's really good is that talking to individuals who actually work for the organization, who are black people work on those organizations, to ask them what it's like. I mean, I think you can get a lot and gather a lot from some of those just general conversations to know, is this a place where black people would like to work? And if they don't want to, like, if they want to be biased and whatever, and I'm not saying it's okay for it to continue and for it to exist, but in the interim, as things are changing, as things are, I guess, as individuals are fighting a good fight to provide equality within the environment, I'm just not going to consider those organizations. I'm like, yo, let me just find somewhere else, because I've heard a lot about like IBM, even about Google and those organizations. I'm like, if black people are having a hard time there, what makes me think that I'm gonna have a better time in those type of organizations? So I just try to scour and go places where individuals who are black have had, I guess, positive experiences within organizations.
See, I think with companies like Google, IBM, Facebook, for black people, that's for black people, you're a small fish in a big pond.
Yeah.
So you kind of get your 1 or 2 years in,
Yep.
and then you ghost, and then you become a big fish in a small pond somewhere
Absolutely.
else.
Yep.
Go ahead, Rain Woman.
That name. Use that name to propel you where you desire to be.
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. Peace and respect to everyone on the panel and in the chat room.
Good evening.
First, I want to start off. Good evening, Nico. First, I want to start off by saying, I've got my money on you. Every black man that know your stuff and you're about your business, Rain Woman got her money on you. So I said that to say this. Don't be intimidated by the system of white supremacy. Have the confidence in yourself more so than that system. Don't allow yourself to be intimidated by the look of someone else because they put their pants on just like you put your pants on. Keep in mind that you're always selling yourself. I've got my money on you. You are just as good as they are, if not even better. You can't have confidence in yourself and at the same time be intimidated by white supremacy or the white supremacy system. And if they think that you are intimidated, you've pretty much given them the go-ahead to treat you as if you are lower than them. I've got my money on you. If you're intimidated, if anyone is intimidated in an interview, and I'm speaking anybody, if anyone is intimidated in the interview, that intimidation is going to carry on throughout your career or whatever term you spend at this place. That's a terrible way for anybody to live. And You guys are better than that. And you deserve better than that. Undersell, over deliver, but go in selling yourself. Don't lowball yourself because of who's in the room. Because if you lowball yourself, you give them the go ahead to lowball you as well. All they can do is say no, but you was looking when you were already looking when you found them. I've got my money on you. That's all.
One thing I want to say in response to Gabe's statement, thank you for that, ranting woman, is that oftentimes it's not the company as a whole, even though in some cases it is a company culture, but it could just be one gatekeeper. You know, that really is has a negative disposition towards, you know, Black people. So a lot of times you can't really just say, oh, well, you know, it's the organization, and, you know, and the hell with the organization. Sometimes like what you did, where you find a way to get around certain these, like, for instance, the recruiter, maybe that the recruiter is not like an example of somebody who is, you know, exhibiting racism, but sometimes you have to find a way to get around certain roadblocks, as opposed to just casting aside the entire organization.
Yeah, I think so. I think to your point, Triz, is that racism is a group dynamic. So if there is a racist person who's a gatekeeper or to that effect, they usually don't work alone. They work in multiples, because they need to build cohesion with and get buy-in within the organization. And this is especially true for white women who do practice racism and racial bias in the workplace. That allows them to accelerate to a higher position. So they're more willing to partake in it in order to get themselves into a different position in the organization. Even
They
if
happen to be of the most racist, Mike. You hit it right in the head. Boy,
Yeah.
Boy,
Yeah.
Boy, hit it on the head. That's a fact.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on their age too. If they're older, they tend to be a lot more racist, but if they're younger, they tend to be more social justice oriented. So they tend to not play by the rules, and therefore they get stuck in a cyclical loop of a position. But to Triz's point that about the gatekeeper, racism always works in a group dynamic. You never find just one person partaking in that sort of practice. It's always multiple people behind the scenes who are helping them control that sort of perspective. And it's unfortunate because if you're one Black person, you're going up against multiple people, and that you end up going through something called racial battle fatigue, and you get burned out.
That's a fact, but Triz is right in the sense that you may have just one person who may be racist and it may keep you down and may hold you down. What you'll find is the others will not fight against what this person may be doing. You follow what I'm saying? They may not go against it. They may not always wrong, but they may not go against it. Okay, let's go on. Then some might speak up later on as this continues to go on if they see somebody who's really good. But on the whole, a lot of people will take a passive position towards it and just let it slide and may not make a big deal. Until it becomes a problem, then all of a sudden,
some organizations are now rewarding whistleblowers now. So if they find out there's some kind of bias practices in the organization being used by certain individuals, they'll give you, they're giving away $500 to $1,000 to people who report that stuff up anonymously.
Some companies, they make.
You mentioned individuals who are like
towards diversity.
Oh, what's that?
Sorry. I was just saying. I say a lot of companies are making some stronger moves towards diversity, just because of kind of the global markets. So it's within their interest. So it's within their interest to do some to keep the hiring practices somewhat diverse, because it's actually good for business. But this stuff it still does go on. Anyway, Gabe, go ahead, man. I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
No, it's all good. I was gonna say that definitely that idea of, even if it's an individual, so it'd be an individual, just as you mentioned, that would be an active participant in singling out Black people within the organization. And then there will be those who are passive. I mean, I've experienced that. I used to work at I used to work at a nuclear plant. So I was working as like a nuclear engineer, but in that particular role, I was working there in the cybersecurity department for the plant. And we were going through all types of training, all types of learning. So I was in classes with like reactor engineers, individuals who were like civil engineers. So we were all going through a lot of the base engineering training that you go into within a nuclear plant. And there was this one individual, he was a naval nuclear officer. He was coming out of there from that particular industry, and he was going into commercial nuclear. And he just stayed on my neck, like as if he was in some way like a supervisor or some type, like I actually had more seniority than this individual. We're in the same classes. We're taking the same exams, but yet, because I had a really good relationship with the instructor who was a white male. And like at every turn of the dime, this dude is watching me. He's like, oh, he would go to the instructor and tell him that Gabe is dozing off in class. And that's a distraction to him. Like this, what are you doing? And because I had a good relationship with the instructor, me and the instructor would like go to lunch and everything. He's like, listen, don't trust this dude. He's a snake. He comes to me all the time. This is an older white male, very liberal dude. He was a really cool guy, but he would kind of give me the skinny, like, yo, like watch out for him, because this guy is trying to like sabotage you or something.
Yeah. You'll have guys that'll come out.
And it's like, what's your situation? And he would like, even after the classes, because I think he was just so befuddled of why I'm passing all these reactor engineering and atomic physics exams, because my background wasn't the same background that he had. Because as naval nuclear officers, you have to go through a lot of intense training. But I went through engineering and I understood a lot of the basis of these things, so the exams weren't difficult for me. Mm-hmm. But I feel like he was just so focused on, why is this guy here with me? Why is he here? Like, he would come over to my desk, even after the classes and everything, walk by my desk, ask me, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, dog, like, we don't work in the same department. He worked in reactor engineering. I worked in engineering support. Why are you over at my desk? I'm like, boy, I'm doing work. Like, what do you want? like, what are you doing at my desk? And it's like, he would try to talk to my manager about me, like, hey, what type of projects again? Like, guy, like, and it's so interesting because when I was going to leave the organization, I was leaving for a pretty prominent role. And he just could not, like, he would go to other people and he could not understand how I got this role. And he's like, how is Gabe, like, what does he do? And everybody would say, like, I don't know what's up with this guy, but he got something against you. And I'm like, so those people who were listeners, right? Those are those active or those passive individuals, right? These are people who see that he's trying to single me out or try to in some way, like, cause some type of issues with my work and employment, but yet they were quiet, right? They weren't doing anything in order to stop him. So I think, just as Mike was saying, it's a system.
There's a order of operation that's instilled amongst white people, that you don't call out another white person for their behavior.
Yep.
Exactly. And those people who may have been passive, they may have been in the position, if they were in that same position, they may not have been racist.
Oh, not at all. Yeah.
But since this individual was there, they just kind of sat back and kind of they were just there, kind of thing. They just let it happen.
I mean, it was so funny because I wasn't too long out of Detroit, so I was almost ready to come to blows with this dude. I'm like, if you don't stop walking past my desk, like,
wait a second, Gabe got hands. Gabe got hands.
Are they calibrated?
Listen, it was just, I don't think that should be the first, right? But shoot, man, like this guy.
Well, you know what it is, man. And this is important, man, because we need to build more networks within these larger organizations. When I used to work at EMC, man, there was a brother there. I'm not gonna mention his name, but he saw the same things that you're talking about, and he built a Black Workers Alliance, not Workers Alliance, but kind of like a Black social network within the organization of professionals to try to talk about these things in a more private, secluded area.
Right.
Because if you talk about it openly, man, white fragility comes
Oh,
out
yeah.
almost immediately. They don't want to have that conversation. It's not me. My grandfather never owned slaves, even though he was born in 1940. You know, they talk all these.
Yeah.
They talk like that in order to spin the conversation out, so that the focus isn't on them. It's back on you now, right? So we don't want another Omar Thornton in the Budweiser facility in Connecticut.
Mm.
You know, where he complained to HR about racism 3 times and they did nothing about it. He came back to work with a pistol, with a blicky, and took guys out in the facility, and took himself out too.
Wow.
You know, that was only a few years ago.
Yeah, I
And
remember that.
yeah, we don't want the same situation like in the naval yard down in DC, down in the DMV, where that brother who was working there went to HR, complained about racism, and they HR ignored him, and he came back with the blicky and took out them people in the naval base.
Wow.
That was a few years ago too. And we also saw the same situation down in Virginia, at the TV station, where the brother complained about racism in the on the news set, and they ignored him. You know, HR ignored him. He came
Sure
back.
did.
He,
Yeah, sure did. He went ham.
yeah, he went ham and took him out on a live broadcast, on the
I
live
mean, it
stream.
creates that within you, man. Like if you're being subjected to this on a daily basis, like it really comes to a point where it's like something has to give. Like I'm not saying that those are the correct actions to take, but I think it can lead to that for individuals.
But you and I work in cybersecurity, so the market is so small, man. If you know, every CEO or CTO, CCSO, they all know each other.
Yep.
You know, you don't want to put yourself in a position where you give a bad reputation.
When keeping it real goes wrong. Just a classic Dave Chappelle skit, right? Like we saw what happens. We don't want those in work situations, yeah, because it can just be a very big detriment to you doing anything in your field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
It's wild.
Yeah, I mean, you was ready to throw hands on this cat, man, but
no, man, nah. That's gonna be a thing.
well, no, it used to be Gabe A. That was Gabe A. got hands, man. So
yeah, man. Hashtag Gabe guy. Listen,
man.
I can't lie, fam.
Yeah.
I'm feeling you on that move. Sorry.
It was something else, man. Daily.
Probably playing
Royce the
5'9" back.
Hey, Royce Royce, Trick. I mean, shoot, it's big in Detroit. Those
I bet, man.
Anyway, go on.
You know, there I think there can be some parallels drawn between what you see in the job market and then what a lot of men in general, not just black men, but men in general, complain about biases and the decisions that are made as far as dating practices. And that the problem is that when you complain about these biases, then somebody will say, well, look at me, you know, I was selected. So it's not them, it's you. When in actuality, there's statistical evidence that supports that there are biased hiring practices. And I think that it's important that you know, we actually are responsive to the actual complaints of people, you know, because a lot of times some people may assume that, you know, that because they're so capable that anybody else that wasn't considered for a position is generally because of a lack of competence, as opposed to some sort of ulterior motive, some type of insidious hiring practice or racism, overt racism of some sort. So I think we just got to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, definitely. Select versus non-select, you know, it's interesting. But in the workplace, I think the heterosexual black male is constantly under attack. I should have added that article about, you know,
for sure.
How you know, if you look good on the job, man, that can really, you know, take a toll on you as a man and as a woman too.
Oh, don't be buff. It's a problem.
Oh,
Check
you
check
buff,
this out.
buff,
Oh,
and you
oh,
got
oh, I,
hands, and you from Detroit.
no, for a fact, I was
I'm
listening to
not
Ronnie
particularly
Coleman.
buff, but I've seen it.
I was listening to Ronnie Coleman one time. Ronnie Coleman, he's 8-time Mr. Olympia. He had graduated from, I think, Grambling State University. He had graduated summa cum laude. He had a, damn near 4.0 average. Got his degree in accounting and all that. Passed his exam and all that kind of stuff. He said he went from company to company to company to company, and they wouldn't hire him.
Mhm.
And he ended up taking a job, on the police force, a couple of years later, but ended up working for a couple of fast food companies and was like, was moving up through the ranks there, but he couldn't get a job. And then one of the guys that were interviewing him later on said, "I know why you didn't get those jobs. Why?" I said, "Look at your body." He was like, "What are you talking about? Did you walk up in there all swole, looking like that, coming out your suit, traps coming through your shirt, all busting out your?" He's like, "Yeah, pretty much. That's why they didn't hire you. He was too big and strong. Big, black, strong dude. They feared him and didn't want to hire him."
I have the same problem. I've been pulled over in my one-on-ones, or to have these random one-on-ones about how you dress in the office. And one of the one-on-ones told me that you have to tone down your dress code. You're showing up the other guys on the job, and that's making them feel uncomfortable.
Wow.
The women in the office are saying there's new eye candy in here, and that's you're getting all types of mistreatment. One guy tried to swap out the keys on my keyboard, man. So I put in the password wrong and locked myself out. I had people, guys, just kind of disconnect my key, disconnect my mouse, what do you call it, my keyboard and mouse, man. So I can't log in. Just all types of tactics, man. Very aggressive against what they consider to be a sexual threat in the office, man. So that becomes a problem as well. You can't be you can't have those sort of looks. That's jawline, basically. You can't be a jawline dude in the office and think that they're not coming for you.
And you can't be too swole. My workout partner, young cat, he about 34 years old now. I got him exceedingly swole, and he's been walking around the job, and he's been having problems on his job. Now the women, of course, are highly attracted to him, but he's had a problem job. One of his managers were like, Pat, there's a guy I was in the gym with the other night. He was like, Pat, you're different now, and listen, you got to do this, you got to do this. And Pat was like, what is this guy bringing me and talking to me about? Some small kind of, we call him, instead of demaciated, sucked up looking little white boys type, because he's swole and they're mad. And they said, Pat, you're different now. You got to watch certain things. Basically giving him a warning saying, you walking around with too much muscle and we're tight.
Crazy.
That is exactly what's going on with him right now, real time. And I'm like, damn, this dude's he's got a management position and folks are getting tight. They're getting tight. And some of them white women are walking around sweating. So this is a problem. So yeah, this is actually a problem. If you're too heterosexual, too masculine, too swole, too built, and those kind of stuff like that, too dressed too nice, these things can be issues. Which is crazy. It shouldn't be, but actually it's a factor.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, go ahead. Super true.
Oh, I didn't. Well, I don't know how people. Well, let me just say this. Personally, I like to peruse other websites, other YouTube channels from the greater populace, so I can gain insight into how they think and some of their cultural practices. There's one website in particular. I'm not going to say it on here, but there's a website. It's a .org website, and it's like a white nationalist / white supremacist website. And it's basically like a forum board. I never post. I don't, go in undercover and try to post. I just basically just sit back and I browse and I read some of the stuff. You won't believe how many different people are on this website, this forum board. These are white people. Some of them are blue collar. Some of them are professionals, law enforcement, judges, lawyers. And some of the stuff that they say, sickening. And these are the people that are working right next to you. People that, you may have an interaction with at a traffic stop. Like if you ever have any legal issues, you may have interaction in the courtroom. And these are people, they're not going to be overt. They're not going to come out and just say it to your face. Mm-hmm. They're going to do something insidious where you'll basically have no proof that it ever occurred. You'll just, you'll get some type of random complaint, or, you may get terminated from your position. You may not be considered for a position, a lower wage offered, all kinds of things. This is something that we're constantly up against. And so I think it's imperative that, individuals that can actually function as a gatekeeper, do just that. You control the gate. And those that actually, look like you, there should be a greater amount of understanding and leniency, because you know what they've gone through. Mm-hmm. Those that don't look like us remain indifferent. And I think that's very important, because for a lot of us, like, again, for somebody like most people in the Black Brain Trust who have some level of specialized skill or education of some sort, and they're able to negotiate certain terms, either when they're seeking employment or creating employment for themselves. A lot of people on the Black Brain Trust can create their own job opportunities. They don't have to necessarily seek employment with somebody else. But for a lot of our people, and when I say our community, I use this term very loosely, because I'm very, very cognizant about that terminology and the level of inclusiveness that it entails. But people who may not necessarily have that ability to have that negotiating power, but are functional members of the Black community. Think about them, who they're at the mercy of people that are considering them for employment. It's not that easy for somebody like that consistently being overlooked. Just like the guys that that you said went postal, guys who are actually on the job, make it onto the job, but consistently face racism and things like that, and really have a tough time on the job. I think that's just something to think about.
I think one thing also for black men is, especially in like the tech field, one thing that, man, and I've talked to another black male kind of in the industry who also is in the same position, is looking for roles that have 100% remote or 100% work from home type of roles. Yep. I mean, ever since I started working from home, I mean, I could wake up, be in a do-rag, be in sweatpants. It doesn't matter. I don't have to deal with the corporate, office politics and have to be around people I really don't care to really talk about. People popping up at my cubicle asking me questions that really don't have anything to do with work. They just trying to talk. So, I would say, like, especially in the tech field, and these roles are becoming way more common, is finding 100% remote or work from home type of roles. I would say that would be one of my recommendations, because I found a lot of relief from dealing with those office things by working remotely.
Yeah, that's interesting. Gabe wakes up with a do-rag, man. Gabe,
Facts. I gotta keep my waist spinning, baby. What you mean?
Pookie Gabe. Pookie Gabe got hands.
Hold it, Gabe. Do-rag and calibrated hands?
Absolutely.
Oh no! We got an educated Pookie here.
No. Not at all. Not at all. It's comfort. I've been wearing do-rags since I was a little kid. It's just a comfort thing. It's a comfort thing.
Man, I ain't knocking on your door early in the morning, man. That could be a problem, bro.
My neighbors have listen.
Matter of fact,
I think my neighbors think I trap or something.
Gabe is about to defect to the B1 network.
Oh, I'm not doing none of that. I don't even know what that is.
Oh yeah?
I don't even know. I don't know. That has nothing to do with. I don't know. All I'm saying, My neighbors, let me tell you, my neighbors have no idea what I do. I'm going out in the middle of the afternoon, going to the gym, seeing what's going. They see me come back and forth. They probably think I'm a drug dealer or something because I never dressed up at home at all.
Okay, but do you go out? Do you go out with the do rag on your dome piece?
Yeah.
Oh
Sometimes.
shit!
But
they
they
thinking you shady. They thinking you shady.
Absolutely. But shady, but comfortable. Very comfortable.
There you go.
Uh-oh. Here come complex. What complex design say? Wait a minute. Gabe has Pookie origins. I don't know. Hello?
Yeah, I hear you, man. Let me get to some of these questions. I think we missed some of these questions. I want to make sure we get to them before we close out. Let me see. I think we might have missed them. I know there's some questions about tech that came up. Oh, yeah, Richard Victor Dixon. I think Undergoing already touched on that, but companies want job experience, and you got to deal with being black. Should brothers fudge a little bit on their resumes? I don't know how much you can actually fudge on that. I know some guys do have Anglo-Saxon names, like Brad and John and things like that. Some guys will use their Anglo-Saxon names over their black names or cultural names. I've known some guys who have eliminated their first name and just used their first initial and then their last name. So that helps with the HR system that may actually be filtering out cultural names. Because I know there are databases and stuff set up. You know, we covered articles about this before that they will disqualify a non-white sounding name or a non-European sounding name.
If you got Shakita or something like that coming up, you finish.
Yeah, sadly, but true.
Yeah, you finish.
See, it's interesting because I actually have because my mom is from America, but my dad is from Nigeria. I have a Nigerian last name, but it kind of look and sound like it's French. So I think that when I show up at a job site, people don't know what to expect. So it's kind of interesting. So I don't even know.
Yeah, but I mean, I think certain names, that come up that sound black, especially more on the female side, especially. But Daquan, Daquan Cooper and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
you're gonna have a little bit of an issue.
Yeah, make sure that your email doesn't say, little JJ 69.
Yep.
I trap hard at gmail.com. That type of stuff, man. My phishing email system would flag that thing immediately. So. Let me see. There was a last. Oh, here it is right here. W Brizzle. Actually, that's not a question. It's more of a statement. But yeah, I think we covered everything, man. Unless anybody has any last things they want to go over real quick.
Gabe, what color is your do-rag?
Man, listen, keep the black do-rag It goes with everything.
You ain't got a two-tone do-rag?
Nah.
Oh, okay.
That draw
I
too
thought
much
you had a
attention.
Detroit Lions one.
Nah, I've seen those. Do not have one. Have not been interested in that. The two-tone blue and gray with the lion at the top.
Yeah.
Me. Yeah, no, I'm straight on that.
Oh, so
Yeah.
okay, so when you do have to, on a rare occasion that you have to go into work, do you have like a velvet do-rag?
Nah. Man, it's night and day because I go to customer sites, so I'll be in the hotel and then I gotta wear a jacket and all that, but it's typically only for a week or a couple of weeks, and I'm right back at the crib. So
right in your J's, snakeskin J's with
I
your true
wish,
religions.
man. My mom ain't let me wear no J's growing up because people was getting killed for them. So I've never really gained an affinity to J's as I was growing up because I wasn't allowed to wear them. So
Wow.
Yep.
But as long as you come from the crib, wear what you want. That's for damn sure.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just It's a
Yeah.
whole
See,
different type of
I used to work remote, just like you said, man, and
Mhm.
although I like it to a certain extent, man, the lack of interaction with people can actually wear you down, man. So sometimes when the Jehovah's Witness comes knocking on the door, man, I drag him in there, and it's like, oh, I have to leave. Like, oh, where you going?
There you go.
Yeah.
My wife is here, and so she's here most of the time, and then so I'm on like 50 to 60% travel. So I'm gone half of the month anyway. But for my last role, it was 100% remote. I didn't have any customer interaction. And yeah, I felt that. I was like just down that time. So I barely talked to anybody. So it was very difficult. But for this consulting role, I'm always at a customer site. So that kind of breaks that silence. Yep.
Yeah, I think the next time I go remote, man, I'll definitely move out of the country.
Mhm.
I know I got some serious contacts down in Vietnam, Cambodia now too. Just met somebody this weekend.
Great places to be, man.
Boy.
Great
Not
places.
only is it a great place to be, having fun, but you're gonna save a lot of money being out there too.
Oh
Yeah.
man,
Yeah,
50 grand a year, which is short money. You will be living like Prince Ibn Saud or whatever of the Saudi family. You will have drivers and valets and people cleaning your house and everything else like that.
Yep.
50 grand, bro. 50 grand.
Yep. I know you're like a Roman nomad, a digital nomad. So I think guys should be looking for remote positions, especially if you don't want to deal with the office politics. But sometimes when I do come into the office like once every 90 days or something like that, you get these stares like, who is this guy? And it's like, come on, man. Like the whole reason of me being remote is to get away from you. Last thing I want to do is actually have a further conversation with your racist self. So
it's gonna go from Mike V to Mike Vietnam. He gonna be in Vietnam. He gonna be in Vietnam with personal bathers like he the Princess Zamunda.
Oh man, nah, man. The Vietnamese women have some of the fattest fatties I've ever seen in my life.
And a lot of them are dark black.
Oh yes,
black,
man. Yeah,
dark
man.
black. With the crazy hair game and all. It just
with their cornrows and their
the crazy hair, bro. You gonna have.
I see him. I see him up here all the time, man. I see him up here all the time. Brothers who are upwardly mobile got some Viet Cong poom, and
and they kind of look like you, and they love breakfast.
Oh yeah,
they love you. They love you out there. They
love you long time.
Oh yes, long. Love your lifetime if you want to play it like that. Love your lifetime.
I can't be engaged in this conversation.
Well, I mean, put your do-rag on. Put your do-rag on. I'm surprised you ain't go to Black Hat or DEF CON. So
I wanted to go, but I was so busy. Like we had budget. I just was like, nah, I don't got time.
Yeah,
I don't have time.
But yeah, let me get up out of here, man, because I think that we've touched all the topics, man. Thank you all for joining us. Hit the like button, please. if you have not already done so, and share the video if possible. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you go to get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. We did post last week the Linux administrators discount. You could get or you could have gotten a discount on Linux training and certification from Linux Foundation. That was a big come up. You know, it was worth over $1,000. It was marked down to like $200. You can't beat that. So if you missed out, you missed out. Outside of that, shalom.